for November 14th, 2022 for OUA Board of Directors. It is 2:06 p.m. We're going to do a pledge. How about people join me to the pledge? I looked at the agenda. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Lucky I'm not in flip-flops if I was coming from my MRI.
Very comes in his shorts. Yeah, no big deal.
Alrighty then. Gonna do take the roll, and Miss Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Clay? Here. John Creasman's here, Mr. Fadley's not here, Mr. Moldenhauer, Mr. Nelson, Miss Trent,
Here.
Mr. Schneider is also missing. Not worried about a quorum because it is a workshop. Just a few things I'd like to add about the workshop. You know, we do not vote on anything here. This is all for discussion, and hopefully we can learn something, walk away with more knowledge. Let's exercise some professional courtesy, please. Let's not talk over each other. Let's respect each other and move on. I think we can get her done that way. If we start talking a bunch at each other, I think we're going to be here all night, and we've all got other things to do. So moving down the agenda list, agenda number 2, project financing. John, would you like to give us an overview on that?
Happy to. The first part of this is just a recap of all the projects that we either have pending, under construction, planned, and these are primarily just projects, construction. So if I go too fast, speed over, you got a question, please stop me and ask me. Southwest Service Area has been the focus of the OUA here in the last few years. Southwest Service Area is compiled of basically 3 overall projects. Each project might have more than multiple parts to it. So it's like for Project 1, we have the force main going from the new master pump station site on Old Dixie up to our existing pump station up on the soccer fields by the airport. That's station NW15. 80-90% of that project is constructed. We have a slight issue that you're aware of gopher tortoises that have impacted the route. That permitting is underway. We filed the 2 different applications. Hopefully we'll hear something within.
Excuse me, John, what's this have to do with project financing?
I was just giving the overview of the project.
Okay, thought we could do that tomorrow.
I'm not in a hurry, John.
Okay, well, I just looking at the agenda, we got.
Well, we're here for the people. And for us to have, I've put myself on hold this afternoon, so let's go through this. Let's go through the detail.
I'll try to be as brief as possible. If you have some questions, stop me. So project 1 is it comprises the force main, the master pump station, which is under construction on Old Dixie. They started that work within the last couple of weeks. Much of the wet well is in, and that project is underway. And the last part of project 1 is the interconnect between our existing force main that serves our basically the south area to tie into this master pump station for 2 reasons. One, to deflect some of the flow from SC2, which is overloaded, I mean, it's at times. And then also because the master pump station needs some flow to work, because it's going to be a while before we connect up the 500 residents and Project 2 and Okatani and Points on. So we'll mix that flow. That project hasn't started yet. It's under design.
Now, the actual property that we bought, where we've cleaned it all up, put the road in, have we started construction actually on the?
Yes, sir. That's the master pump station.
Pump station, it's
Started
already.
a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. And
Okay.
much of the wet well is in, so they're moving along.
Okay, all right. So that's
Still a
what we're talking
vacuum
about.
station to
Okay.
build there, but the construction has started.
Okay.
Project 2, we just recently got notice from the USDA that we can actually put it out to bid. They've accepted our documents. So shortly, a couple weeks or so, we'll be ready to put that out on the street to advertise for bids for construction.
John?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we skip over the Southeast 2 internet project?
The internet connection was the force main that I said connects to the force main on Third Avenue, which will take some load off of SE2 and give some flow to the MPS so it can start operating.
sorry, I
And that has been mostly designed, but it has not been put out for construction yet.
John, you can slow down a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry, am I going too fast?
Yeah.
Okay, anything on project one that I need to answer? Okay, sorry. Project two is the collection system, vacuum stations that we're gonna put in that area between Old Dixie and Wolf Road and from about Eagle Bay out to Oak Park, that area that has upwards of maybe 500 initial connections with a maximum of maybe 700 with time, you know, when houses are built on vacant lots.
Is that how many houses there is in Oak Park?
Oak Park probably has maybe 150, 200?
200, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing, yeah.
So initially, we're looking at 500 connections. With the vacant properties and whatever, it might get up to 700 connections. As I was saying, the USDA just recently gave us approval to put this out to bid. So within a couple weeks, we should have it on the streets advertising. Kind of a bad time with Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, but we'll probably take bids somewhere in January for this project. Project three is Okatani. That's under design. They did the hydraulic analysis determining pipe sizes, pump station locations. They've done the initial site survey along the route, and the design element is moving forward, actually putting a pipe on a piece of paper and starting that process, identifying where the pipe is going to go, valves, that type of deal. The next step, of course, then would be looking at points to tie in and any conflicts, and then we'll hopefully go out to bid sometime in the early springtime.
Now, with that project, once the design's done, and you guys know more about this than I do, the existing facilities that are there, I think we might have had this discussion, and I can't remember. The trailer parks and all that are there, will you be able to hook into their lift stations as it is, or?
So our normal design is to stop at the property line, between the right-of-way and the property line, and then it would be for the owner to come to us. Your question, can they use their old septic tanks or old treatment plants? Absolutely. They can put some pumps in there and then make the connection from there to the road.
There's a question I was asked, and I couldn't remember if we would.
I was asked at a BOCC meeting whether we were gonna be doing the work up on property. Generally, we can't, because it requires it's on private property and deals with building officials, and you
Right.
have to have GCs or plumbers, and we don't have a GC or plumbing. So we stop at the right of way typically.
Well, somebody had started to rumor that you wasn't gonna be able to hook into the main force main coming down through there, and that's why we put it in.
You won't be able to connect gravity. You have to
Right.
put a pump station in, and then you can join.
Right.
Yes, sir. So that would be something we would work out, but the main reason, we don't have a GC, we're not a licensed plumber, we don't work up on property. So that doesn't mean we can't hire a GC or a plumber, but anyway. So Pine Ridge Park, you might be aware of that, that was out in the east side. We just let the contract for adding 80 new water customers and about 100 new wastewater customers. They are burning along. They've got much of the water main already in, and they're working on the vacuum. So that project is moving forward in Pine Ridge Park. That was going to be Go Underground, no, Hinterland Group doing that work. We change ordered out some money to try to bring the price down. That's all old news. I'm sure you know about that. Advanced metering, the AMI project, that is the project that we were gonna be putting in some new meters, registers, endpoints, to do it all by telemetric means, so that we can access the meters, watch for high usage, or when there's supposed to be no usage, interrogate meters when there's a sale going on and the buyers and sellers are in the lobby wanting to close out one account and open another one. Customer portal, the customer can look at their meter and see where their usage is for them. You know, there's a lot of these things that you've seen the dog and pony show here. That project is ongoing and not under construction. We just took bids. Let me rephrase that. Southwest Service Area Project 1, several of them, and Pine Ridge are under construction. We're obligated for those construction dollars. Everything else is all planned and ready to go. The advanced metering, we took the bids, they're in the project, and we can go over that in detail. Southwest Fifth Avenue, that's at 90 to 100% design is done, close to going to construction. No construction money's been allocated for the Southwest Fifth Avenue, but we did allocate money for the design element. Treasure Island, that project, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. When do we anticipate the design to be complete on Southwest? Fifth?
Momentarily, within weeks. I mean,
Okay, I wasn't
it's
sure if Jeff had provided an update.
It's gotta be right at that 90 to 100% range.
Okay.
For the area around Southwest Seventh Avenue, Fifth Avenue, remember, we kind of broke it into two different projects. For that first element around Fifth Avenue and Seventh Avenue, Third Avenue and eastward, that was gonna be under, the second phase of that project. So that first phase is at 90 to 100%. That was gonna be the low pressure system, not gravity, not vacuum system. Treasure Island, project that we've talked about for years. We're initiating, probably bring it back in December, the engineering proposal to get started on that work. And so it's very early in the design phase. So I won't go over a lot of this under construction. It's there. You read through it. You see the dollar amounts where we have allocated DEP money, or we have a USDA loan that we're talking about, and then where we need money for construction. Is there anything under this under construction that y'all would like me to go over? Okay.
I just want to make sure that if there's anyone, if Gary or has any questions or anything like that, this is good for him to know as well, so.
So, the difference here, I want to point out between under construction, that we're obligated, we have a contract we need to finish, and under consideration. There's just a slight nuance there and difference. We can go to this table, sorry, I was trying to hook it up on the screen, but we'll go to this table that's in your board package. What I want to be able to show is here are the dollar amounts, either actual bid numbers or the best numbers that we have, the latest engineering estimate on each of these projects. Identified where the funding is coming from, if we already have acquired funding. And lastly, the last column is the deficit, the net unmet need that we have for some of these projects.
And why are we not able to project this on the screen?
I tried it this morning, but that laptop is not agreeing with these TVs.
Do we have a copy of this in case anybody wants to see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just hate the fact that we cannot show it to the public.
And John, this Treasure Island, this is, I know we're looking at DEP for 24 million. We're thinking the project's gonna be 30.4.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and those numbers are from, was it Eckler, or how did we get to 30 million?
It came through Eckler and then tweaked a little bit by yours truly, because those numbers were a couple years old.
Older,
And
okay.
bumped it up for possible COVID related expenses.
Yeah, because originally we were at about 24 million when we started this thing, weren't we? Is that right?
Yes.
So there's roughly $31 million is in hand. I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. A little over 25 million is in hand.
Yeah.
And we're missing approximately 5 million of where we're coming up from. So in the bottom of this table, on your left hand, is the first box. There's a DEP grant portal information that we requested. Hopefully would know something this month as to if any one of those were approved, and if so, for how much. The 4 boxes on the right are, the 2 boxes underneath it are the projects that we already have approved, either an SRF loan or the USDA loan, the initial one on Project 2. Projects were identified, dollars, annual debt service payment. The 4 on the right are projects that we would need to get additional funding for. And the amount, like say for the first one, the Southwest Service Area, it's about $4 million shortfall. It's planned to either be in the DEP portal could fund part of it, or we would have to have a USDA, a second loan. The Pine Ridge Park, we're short about 1.5 million. It is in the portal. We may get paid that way, or we got to get an SRF. So some of this is duplicative. It just depends upon which way we get the source, tried to identify all the sources and how it might impact us.
But we've applied already for the funding.
No, ma'am, only the portal money. The Pine Ridge Park, after November, we have to get started in that second loan to get started on that because of where that project is. And the Southwest Service Area will need to get started on it because if it's going to out to bid 6 months or 4 months, whatever it takes, and then go to construction, we need to know we have that money locked in.
John, and on the Treasure, and I'm on the Treasure Island just simply because it'd be the last project and the longest. If we broke ground in a year, how long do you think it would take, just a guess?
Well, the Treasure Island, the guess is that we would do the north section and the force main to get that started, just so we don't have everything torn up at once. So that's 19 million or 18 million if my
No,
memory serves me.
I'm talking about days,
Time-wise.
time-wise.
Oh, for construction, it's gonna take, at least 12 to 18 months for the design portion, and the construction would be probably equal to that 12 to 18 months. So you're looking at 3 years maximum to get the first 2 projects done. At some point in that wave, we would start the second project, which is just the southern end, and it would finish up 12, 18 months after the first one.
So,
So you're looking at 3 to 4 years.
yeah, you're looking at 3 to 4 if we got started in the next year. What is this, 22?
It's around
I was
26.
gonna say 23.
So 26, 27 would be a good date. So that leaves us only 2 years left on part of our SRF that we're paying on now, and 3 on the other one, so.
Plus you have
Am I
other,
looking at that correctly?
Yes, I think so.
and you have other customers, new ones like Southwest Service.
Right,
Area
I
will
mean,
be
all
on
that's
board.
coming aboard, I just,
Yeah. So it's, and then even by the time you start the south construction, you might have some of the north people connecting, bringing in revenue. So there's gonna be some staggered costs going out and then the resulting revenue coming in.
That's where I wanna hear that.
So this is a very busy sheet. There's just a lot going on. Just remember that this is identifying all the projects and the funding sources that we know about. Down here on the left are the projects that we're requesting either through the DEP portal, may or may not happen. Underneath them are the 2 projects because where they're at, that we already have approved. And then on the right are other sources if the DEP portal doesn't come in.
so right now, we are 5 million short on Treasure Island,
Approximately, yes, sir.
and then we are 1.8, no. On advanced metering, what were we short there?
The 1.3 million.
Is it
I know, I'm sorry. I read
Is it
it.
1.8?
It's 1.2, around 1.2, somewhere there about.
Okay, on the end, okay, I got you.
It's
All
the
right.
far right column, it's all the net unmet.
That we're
needs
short.
financial. Potentially.
You get all that, it's not bad, even if you had to finance that amount.
Well,
But you still gotta remember how we gotta get them hooked up.
Correct, that's where I keep coming from. There's no use in building all this stuff if we're not connected.
Well, it's rosy, but not that rosy. So I'd like to say it's already all locked in, but it isn't. So
Right.
we got several pots to draw from, and it depends on, we can't really, we need to see what happens in November with the DEP portal money. That's gonna be our deciding factor as to which path, which projects we choose and which path we go down.
And we're pretty sure that we're gonna have an answer in November.
The last I heard from our lobbyist was the Tallahassee is gonna try to make the decision in November. It's all closed. They're not accepting any new projects. They've come back with that ranking thing that we kinda did remotely, and we ranked our projects. So, and I'm sure they're doing that with other people that had multiple projects. The last I heard was November is what they were targeting this month. Now, whether it's gonna be tomorrow or Thanksgiving, I mean, I don't know. There's not much left in November. 2 weeks. So we should know.
But again, worst-case scenario is what I'm looking at.
Well, we're gonna get to some of that here in just a second. So when we talked about how can we fund this work, this is kind of new stuff. The next page is we showed you how in our budgetary process, there are elements in our budgetary process that are recurring, happen every year. We have to put money in. So like on our current senior lien debt service, we have to have a mark of 120% for our funding. They want overages. Well, we never get into that 20%. It ends up at the end of the year as a surplus. We put it back into the rate stabilization fund or cap, but then the next year when we start the budget process, we still have to have 120% there, or 115% for those two, the senior and the junior lien debt service payments. There are things that we do in Section E of the budget. Say we budget $10,000 for gasoline for a particular agency, and maybe they only use 8,000. Well, we still got to budget 10, but that means there's a $2,000 surplus on the end of the audit. So we have these monies. So what you want to see in here is that every year, not every year, in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can see that we have budgeted some of our money to go in, pledge, to go into either the rate stabilization fund or the CIP fund. And then conversely, down below, you see for the past 4 years, where when the outside auditor has completed the audit, there's X amount of dollars left over that's non-allocated. So when you look through the historic, the last 4 or 5 years, what I want to show you is out of the budgetary process, there could be as much as $600,000 available for these projected annual debt service payments without changing the rates. That's kind of the important thing here, that we utilize this money. If we wanted to utilize it, we could earmark it. Now, it does mean a tighter budget. We have to be cognizant of that, and we can't just be changing it without the necessary requirements. But I'm just saying that money could be available for some of these annual debt service payments that we identified on the previous page. So going down, and again, stop me, I'm going through this, but if you look under the required projects again, because they're under construction and we got to build them, you have the Southwest Service Area USDA annual debt service at $255. If we have to get the second loan, we projected that annual debt service at $135. And Pine Ridge Park, we did an estimate that if we don't get the loan portal money, we have to get an SRF. We estimated that at $115. Those projects are under construction and we need to cover those costs. They're at $505. You have $635 that's identified up there. There's a comfort level that we've got those covered. The optional ones, and I say optional because they're not under contract for construction, they're still all viable. You have the AMR project, which could require as much as $260,000, and Southwest Fifth Avenue for, again, that first phase at $150,000 a year that we would have to meet somehow, some way out of the budget. So there's a little bit left over out of the 635, 135. So we have to meet like roughly $300,000. So what I'm saying is the projects aren't necessarily dead, but we have to be aware that it may require some other additional funding if we're going to do all of these planned projects. And keep in mind, that doesn't do anything with Treasure Island, because that's years out.
That's why I wanted to see some of this, because before we start getting more
So-
projects on the board.
So that's, you asked for a project update, that's my update. Well, we'll take whatever feedback or comments or whatever you want to do.
We get the required done, and what's that add to our bottom line as far as ratepayers? What's that for every, because this is gonna be, what, 100%, except for the little bit of water we're doing in Pine Ridge, the rest of it's all wastewater.
Well, if you're talking about under the required work, the USDA is going to add upwards of 500 new customers in Pine Ridge. Let's say on the wastewater is about another 100, so about 600. And they generate, if you're talking about like the debt service component, what did we say, it was 1735 or something?
17.
So are you doing the math as far as the base rate times that? Is that what you're asking?
Out of the
Yeah.
base, out of the base rate. there's a-
1725.
So
Out of-
that's it.
That's-
Yeah, so that's the number they have locked in, correct? That
Yes.
goes to debt retirement.
Yes. So that's gonna generate about $125,000 a year.
Providing we have everyone connect.
Yes.
Everyone connect. So if everyone connects, you're at 505, how much was it? 125?
About 125,000 with the
brings
package
it-
and the,
Brings it back down to 380. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, all of these projects, wastewater, are gonna generate new customers. The AMI does not generate new customers, but there could be savings to both the customer, because they don't have a 500,000 gallon water leak, or us, because we can catch people that are stealing water. I mean, there's ways that we can adjust back on some of our operating expenses, but it does not generate new revenue as new customers.
And one of the things that I asked too was, I asked John this past week, how many complaints or concerns do we have voiced by customers per month as far as usage that they're not aware of or that they're disputing? And what was your reply, John?
I don't know, let me, Michelle, do you got to figure out how many a month you get calls out front? It's not
It's minimal,
many.
correct? Yeah.
It's not many.
So I'm trying
We
to
do,
weigh out the
we do
benefits.
get them, but you guys see it probably twice a year at least, of people with huge bills,
Yeah.
because they're in Kentucky, it's steadily running, and we only see it once a month. And by the time we catch it, 500,000 gallons have gone through their meter, and my deal is, I can't just write that off. It has to come up to the board for consideration.
But my point being is us taking on additional debt for this when we need to be weighing the benefits here. And really, to me, there's not a whole lot of benefit if we're not having that many disputes. And we would be in the way of employees reducing what?
Yes, ma'am, that's a true point. But there are other benefits that we don't weigh, such as when we have customers standing out in the lobby, the seller and the financer, one wants to close out their account, wants to start a new account. Right now, it's a $70 trip charge and however many minutes for somebody to drive there, read the meter, radio back, and we give them the answer, where it could be more instantaneous. The other deal is, the customer goes, well, why is my bill so big? Well, they can get in on the customer portal and over the preceding month, see where the distribution is, and said, oh, that's when my son and his family were visiting. I know now why the flow's so high.
But it was a $3 million cost?
Yes, that's
Right,
what-
is that right?
3.6, wasn't it?
Yes.
3.6.
It's gonna be the northern number, 3.6. We're trying to pare that number down by eliminating some of the extraneous things. It's gonna come down. Is it gonna come down far? I don't know, but it may get down to 3 million, but it's a lot of money.
Yes, and I'm trying to weigh the benefits versus all this money that we're talking about spending for
Well,
this particular.
the-
It was first proposed, it was half of that. It's double.
First,
Exactly, it was $1 million, right?
It's a whole different
well, the
look at it now.
first one was like 1.9 million, so we've added about 1 million over the time period. But to not belabor the point, we are getting other things like new meters out of that, and they cost us money now that we're having to budget, I think it's $250,000 a year for new meters. It can go down to 40,000, because now we have all these new meters in the system. So it's not just the savings of the customers out front, there's a lot of savings in on this project. I will tell you this much. When you look at the wastewater projects and you have 500 new customers or 100 new customers, that's a very good selling point. AMI, 0 new customers.
Right.
But what I'm saying is the trade-off is, rather than customers, we're not spending $250,000 a year on massive meters. We buy them at 400, a pallet of them, $445,000 or something? I think it's somewhere around $45,000 per pallet, and we get several of those pallets a year. If we put all this money into new meters in this $3 million, What I'm saying is for the next couple years, that $250,000 number drops. So I'm adding to what you're mentioning, that we don't have the customer complaints to support it, but there are other things when you drill down into it that you see would be a cost savings to us.
But it adds back to that now you got that debt on it that eats up the new customer that's coming in.
That's what I'm trying
The-
to weigh out here, because
I would
it's
s-
not adding anything to the bottom line, other than what John's mentioning here, as far as other benefits.
Well, put it in this perspective, the annual debt service that we projected is around 260,000.
Right.
If we're not buying $250,000 worth of meters, let's say we're buying 50,000, then we've more than met much, 2/3 of that annual debt service cost that we move from zones, section C, purchasing materials, to the debt service payment.
But
Yeah,
how
but you-
often do we purchase meters?
We allocate about 250,000 per year.
I know what we allocate, but how often do we purchase them?
I'm gonna guess at least a pallet a quarter. We order 3, Jamie, do you know, is that? So for a year, that's almost $200,000.
So you're looking at replacing all your meters now, but that's kicking the ball down the road. You're gonna have to do them again.
We've been doing it for the last few years, haven't we? A few, and a few, and a few.
Yeah.
Well, we have, if you,
Replacing a lot of them, I thought, going, yeah.
if you remember, and this is going back into time, older meters, we used to have read in 1,000-gallon increments. And so we'd have people complaining, well, why did I use this? Well, it rolled over. It's rounded off on the billing purposes. So back in the mid-2000s, this board directed us to swap out all meters regardless of age or use to actual gallon read. And we were quite busy for several years replacing 9,000+ meters to where we got them in actual gallons. So fast forward, those meters have either 10 or 15-year warranty, 1.5 million gallon, it's either gallons or years. We're at that point, because we didn't think about this at the time, if we replace them all quickly, 10, 15 years down the road, we gotta replace them all quickly again. So we're at this point where we do have to start considerably looking at swapping out meters. So what we've done is we've accelerated the count on the meters that had the highest flow or closest to their end-of-year life and started swapping those out. And we can do,
You should be able to do a spreadsheet on that for us.
we haven't. But we end up doing anywhere from as low as 75 a month to 200 or 300 a month that we've been swapping meters out over the last 2 years. So we've gotten to a point where we might have replaced upwards of 4,000 of those meters out of the, I'm gonna guess, 8,000 that we have in that size. Our staff has done that. So that's why when we look at this AMI, it's down to like 3,000 meters that actually have to be swapped out. All of them have to get registers put on them. So we have started doing that. So I'm just saying, it's fair to say that yes, we don't have a lot of customer complaints, but there are other things that if you want to draw a box around our meters, that would go towards offsetting some of this annual debt service. Not all of it, not new customers, but there are things that we would be able to get that are quite helpful. Hard to put a dollar amount on it, like such that we're gonna put all the meters, have a number like, say, 2,000 gallons, if more than 2,000 gallons went through the meter in 24 hours, go check it, see what's the matter with it. Or if it was zero read, they hadn't paid their bill, now there's 100 gallons going, go check it, see why. So it's hard to put a number on that.
I get what you're saying. It's hard to put that kind of value on something right now with as much as we're doing here. I get where you're going. And I understand John's
Yeah.
too, but I'm also looking at the money we're spending.
Tom, you got something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, building on this a little bit, on the AMI, is any of that directed toward the Southwest project?
No, sir, not really. The meters out there would change, but they're, one's water, one's wastewater, if that's your question.
There are meters out there.
Yes, sir.
Is the entire area serviced by water?
Pretty much.
For the most part, there's some of the roads that we don't go down, there's a few of them, very, very few. And on one that I'm thinking of, we requested of those 3 or 4 property owners to grant us an easement so that we could, and they all said some version of no.
So,
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Y'all want to cut through Lonnie's old place?
Some version, and that's the one I'm thinking of, some version of no.
Yeah, I could imagine.
so the AMI does include the southwest area
Yes, sir.
but would it include Treasure Island by any chance?
Oh, all of it, yes, sir. All the way down to Buckhead Ridge, all the way up to Basswood, everything. The whole area.
You already projected all the cost of the meters in
Whole area.
the proposed construction project.
Yes.
Those water meters are all in place, right?
Well-
And is that what you're trying to say, Tom?
I'm trying to worry about the ones that are not.
Yeah.
In the proposed expansions,
Unless we run new water main, there are no areas that significantly that we have to fill in. Yes, on Basswood, we go down the main street, all those side roads. Most of them don't have water mains on them, so we don't have water main. Could we? Absolutely.
But that was,
because I was just wondering if we had seen all of the cost of the AMI. That's really where I was coming from.
I'm part of the expansion for Southwest Service Area, and within the last 60 days, maintenance department has gone out and down my street, and I've got like 30 neighbors, and they've changed the meters out. My meter was changed the other, within
So
60.
in those instances, we would just put the register on it
Right.
and not have to do a meter install. So, like I say, it's,
was
They're-
3 what did y'all say, 3.6?
the bids came in at 3.6, they've tweaked it on looking at minimizing some powers, and it's down to the 3.4 range.
And you're,
They're gonna do some more looking at it. Can we get it down to 3.2 or 3? I don't know, but we are gonna be, we can go back and look at that.
so right now you're looking at 145 on AMI 1 and 115 on AMI 2?
That's what our projection is, yes, sir. And it could go down, because when we do if we do a second SRF loan, well, remember in the first one, we got 1.8 loan and 500,000 in loan forgiveness. When we do the second SRF loan, we put it all in as loan. Can we get some loan forgiveness? Absolutely, most likely, and it's gonna drive that number down some. But worst case scenario, I didn't wanna say, oh yeah, we'll get 300, and we don't get it, and then I have to bump my number up. It's worst case scenario. All I wanted to share with you is that we have to be careful when we compare what the cost and the benefits of a wastewater project versus the cost and the benefits of a water project that's not including new construction. It's different, and there's different applications, and just make sure you understand that, and that's where we're at.
It'd be simple if it was all new hookups, all new water hookups, all, yeah, it'd be,
Well, be careful, go close some property.
Okay, I would just like to say before I leave, we've always kept the ratepayers forefront, always. Any projects that we do, John, I appreciate all the work, and you too, the work that you do as far as getting our figures to us and what have you. The only thing that I say outside of that is I don't think we should be spending any money for things like buying buildings, renovating this one, anything. We don't know what the economy's gonna do after the first of the year, and I think we need to hang on some of that money.
Okay.
So that's just my opinion.
Amazon's laying off 10,000, announced it today.
Yeah, because it's gonna hurt. So I just really think that maybe 6 months, even a year, if we can go that long without having to really address, unless there's an emergency or some, the roof falls in or something like that, we have to do something. But,
Careful what you say.
Yeah.
I understood, but I just, that's my opinion on it.
Thank you for your opinion. Appreciate you.
All right, see you in the
We're
morning.
gonna take them now. Be careful there.
Okay, bye.
That's all I had on that.
I'm good.
Well, it's a different kind of project. But again, we have to be careful on how it's looked at as far as the benefits and the cost. And no, it's not, we have one loan already approved, but we haven't signed the deal yet. So we can always say thanks, but no thanks. That's on the AMI.
Yeah.
Any other comments or thoughts on the projects? We'll keep you posted as we go along. Like I said, hopefully there'll be some very good news coming out of DEP for the grant portal. But you kind of have to, what I would suggest is we really need to wait to see if any of that money comes available, and then how that applies to the other projects.
So what I'm looking at, John, with the Southwest Fifth Avenue then, is we've got all our eggs in the basket looking for the FDEP grant at this time.
No, sir, if you see, there is a number down there for that $4 million of possible unmet. There is a number down there for an SRF application.
But we haven't done the application because we're waiting to see what the FDEP.
Let me rephrase that. I said it wrong. Not SRF, USDA. And USDA is aware of this $4 million. And they told us, well, we do that, we run into that all the time. We do it as a loan amendment to the original one. Well, okay, I'm good with that, but it's still gonna raise my annual debt service payment. And we put that down here, and if I look at it, it adds $135,000 a year. We wanted to make sure we accounted for it
So you said
somehow.
adds 135.
Ads.
Right.
Well, adds to the 255,000 that we already have identified. Now, do we have that in writing in paper? No. It's just our best guess as staff that we have a placeholder down there for that second 4 million. If we get the DEP requested amount of 3.5, now we're down to 500,000. Big difference.
Big difference.
So there's some moving parts, and I would suggest that we don't throw too many darts right now because those parts are moving. We need to see what happens.
Right now, all we've got into this project now is engineering, and we did that out of our own budget.
Yes, but you also have the DEP money on all the other Southwest service area that we've attributed to it. So on the two that we have to concern ourselves is, we're going out to bid soon for Project 2, so we need to have that additional $4 million identified. And under Pine Ridge Park, you're under contract, and if this thing doesn't happen in 2 weeks, we gotta jump on the SRF application to fund the rest of it. Those two,
We knew that.
really need to do.
Right.
Everything else, there's valid reasons to go either way, yes or no. So that's the deal of project financing, unless there's anything else, Mr. Chairman. you want to-
Not for me. How about the other board members? I think you were pretty thorough.
Well, it's a lot of money, it's scary, but I think we have things covered. And what I will tell you is, our next board reading, which is tomorrow morning,
That's what I was about to ask.
I will tell you the same thing then that I'm telling you now. I would suggest that we wait to see what the DEP portal tells us before we say yes or no on any one of these projects. You may have, unless you already know something you don't want to deal with, but I'm just saying, let's see what the DEP portal gives us, and it helps us out quite a bit on where we spread our money.
Yeah, not only with the portal, but again, the times, as we put this into play, because we know we're tailing out on that original 48 million or whatever it was.
Okay, I might be able to do something by tomorrow morning. If you want to know these projects now, rather than focusing on financing, you want a timing chart?
Well, the timing's gonna tell us, it's gotta go with, yeah, we're gonna be financing this stuff, but we're getting closer to the payout on.
Priority list of which ones we need to look at.
And again, that's the reason I'm asking that question of timeline. Because we know that we're gonna be debt-free. If we don't stick if we finish these projects and got funded on what we have in the ground right now, we don't do anything else. We know in 30 we're paid out.
Well, let me add this to your benefit then.
Our debt's paid off. So again, not to interrupt, but what I'm trying to look at is the debt load, how much is it's gonna spike before we start seeing that trend down? And that's the reason I asked for him
Okay.
to do the 500 new hookups every year, and then for 2 years, and then jump 1,000 to,
For the Southwest section and the treasurer.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
where that
500,
graph's gonna be.
500,000, 1,000,
I see what you're saying.
and see how that works against the debt load we're gonna be acquiring versus the maturity of the other ones.
And if it's gonna be any impact to the ratepayer.
Okay, so let me help you with that analogy. The USDA loan that we're talking about for Project 2, actually, we don't incur the annual debt service payments till it's constructed. So even though we sign right now, it's 2 years before we'll see that, whatever it was, 100.
Right, but see that,
But we're
Go ahead.
paying interest payments in the interim, correct?
We're incurring interest payments, but we're not paying them. It's all factored into the amortization
well, that's
schedule.
like kicking the ball at the end of the table.
Well, still.
You gotta get down there and
Still,
eat it.
it's,
No, but when you sign up, you know the total debt picture, which also includes the interest payments. But what we have to look at conversely to that is, when do I start making my annual debt service payment?
Well, and that's,
The point I was trying to say is that if we sign this loan agreement in, whenever we sign it here shortly with USDA, we have interim financing that's gonna be borrow money that's wrapped into the USDA note. You incur the interest over that time period, but your annual debt service, when we have to start paying it out, is 2 years down the road, which would be about the time you get customers.
But I would-
That's
I
why your
want to be
question's so
clear.
important.
that's why you just hit the nail on the head. That's what I wanna see, is the time, our debt service versus new customers. And as that steps up,
Could be a wash.
it could be a wash. And it could be so close that, you know what I'm saying?
They'll burden it on.
And we're almost 2023. We got 7 years of debt left on the facility out there. And we'll have that 48 or $50 million, whatever it was, paid off. That's my point. So
We need to see all of that.
we need to see that as this matures out, as we're adding these things and we're adding these customers and the start dates that we're gonna start making these payments with the new customers involved, what does that do to us? I can sit here and look at this all day long, but if you can't, I have to see it, the impact.
What's the performance gonna
Yeah,
be?
I'm
We don't
a
wanna be
performa
upside down
guy.
on this.
I'm a performa guy. I have to run the numbers to, yes.
Okay, got it, we'll build a table.
Okay.
We have, 23 hours before.
Aren't you glad you came back from San Antonio?
Finally.
But we're not making any decisions tomorrow, so you're not pressuring
Right.
yourself.
But let me work on it. Let me see what we can do.
Yeah, I mean,
Let me see what we can do. No promises, but we'll see what we can do. But again, yes, the decision, again, what I would ask you to consider is let's wait for November to see what the portal says, and then we'll have some much better numbers come December.
Walked away with something very valuable there.
yeah, again, I have no problem with waiting till November. I'm just looking,
It is November.
or yeah, or whatever.
December.
But my whole deal is to look at the pro forma of it And, you know, I come from a school where you gotta have more coming in than you got going out. So we have to look at that, and the only way that we get money coming in is if we bill everybody. You know,
Or if the
we
city,
function like a government.
or if the city and the county follow through with their mandatory connection.
Well, we've had conversations again today, so,
We'll discuss that in depth tomorrow.
yes.
Okay, I think we finally got what I'm looking for.
And I think we learned a lot here.
But I also want to make sure that we're clear that during the construction period, we are paying interest payments.
That's just you.
Well, I'm just saying, that's still money being paid out.
Yes, even though we're not paying it for a couple of years.
Right. It's accumulating.
By then is somebody else. No, I can't say that. We'd never do that to anybody.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Gary has it.
Hi, Gary. Yeah, you got the floor. Come on up. We're very informal, kind of formal.
I was gonna wait till public comment at the end. Since we're talking about these projects right now, Gary Ritter, City Administrator. First of all, on the last comment on mandatory connections, I think we are doing that on all new construction now, so we are. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Southwest Fifth Avenue project that you have kind of in the 90% design phase right now. I want to thank John and John for coming to the city council and getting grilled by our council with about these projects. You know, at the last meeting, I think we were hoping to find some kind of consensus between our council in terms of those three projects that you went out for them in terms of the options. You had the low pressure, you had the vacuum, and you had the gravity. And I'm, off the top of my head, I think the low pressure was roughly a little over 3 million. The gravity and the vacuum were kind of in the $6 million range.
Closer to 7 if I remember.
It was
right.
5 and 6 on paper right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Now, I kind of got the impression that, of course, there were some council members that said, you know, they were ambivalent. And then there were a couple council members that said, all right, if you look at the vacuum system, it's the lowest maintenance, as I recall, of the three of those. And, you know, there is gonna be some growth in the Southwest Fifth Avenue area. I think, John, you may have alluded to the fact that, you could actually take that vacuum system and connect some of the gravity flow system that you have toward the east and toward the commercial areas if you wanted to. But the big thing with that one was to get, really, to make it worthwhile, you needed to get some customers out there. There wasn't a whole lot of customers right now in that particular area. The question I asked, that was kind of getting toward what you were talking about, Tommy, was over the long run, my understanding is, and I didn't see any of the numbers, that the low pressure system is gonna be a high maintenance endeavor for you all. And if that be the case, and it does become that, how long over a period of time does that high maintenance end up costing you more, in the long run versus putting in, a more low maintenance vacuum type of system?
The one thing that we could do, and John will probably reach out, but the one that we're talking about, it's the new version of what's that? I can never remember.
Kings Bay.
Yeah, you get, I don't know why I can't remember that.
Version of Kings Bay.
It's a new version of Kings Bay, and there is some numbers out there from Vero and Fort Pierce, who's now on those systems. So we can actually get those numbers, Gary, and make a good decision as to where is that point of recovering double what that, because it'd be a double is what it is, and So there's some numbers we can get that would be hard numbers as far as what people are using with the new low pressure systems that are being installed. I can't tell you, I don't know. None of us do, you know, but we do know that they're being installed on the coast. So we should be able to get some very good numbers on that. Our deal was not to interrupt you, please, our deal is the panic to try to help, like we did with the southwest section. You know, it rains, his commode don't flushes. They get 4 inches of rain, 3 inches of rain, Eddie's house is underwater. So we were looking at, okay, yeah, we love vacuum. But when it come back at almost double, we're thinking, okay, how can we get these people the quickest relief? And with the way it was showed to us, with everyone having its own power supply off, you know, when it goes down, you got a gen set that's gonna run it. So it's gonna operate like a vacuum. So it's not gonna shut you down. It's not gonna shut the house down. So we kind of said, okay, let's look at that. And that's how we got to this point. And I would suggest that we reach out to, I want to say Jeff Sumner was telling us, wasn't he, or was it Doug? Where those systems were at.
Port St. Lucie, Martin.
County,
St.
yeah.
Lucie County, Port St. Lucie,
Yeah.
St. Lucie County, Martin County. We can find out. And
Yeah.
they are a little bit different than Kings Bay. And the Kings Bay is up by the house and it only pumps the effluent, clear liquid, and we gotta use their power. We're gonna have the pump station out at the road and it's gonna be under our power. So we can stay off the customer's property with this. But they are pump stations for every individual house.
So-
And so our problem is where he was alluding to, that we talked about, gravity sewer, vacuum sewer, you only have one point of entry per house where there's nothing we can do with it. I mean, there's nothing to monitor or maintain. The vacuum sewer, you might have 4 houses to one unit. This low pressure is, generally speaking, it's always one pump station, one house. So you can see that the orders of magnitude, long-term maintenance will go up with a low pressure system.
Yeah. But we can get those numbers, Gary, to be, and make a good decision. What we were doing was looking for the health of the community and knowing what we have. You see what we got, shovels in the ground, and trying to not skip over somebody, you know, because I live behind L.C. Fortner and I don't have it because it's too expensive for him to run that line to my house. So I'm in the same boat, which I just had to redo all my stuff. Again, I'm sorry, but,
Hey, Tom. Tom.
okay.
Just getting your attention.
No, I think your point is you may have to pay twice.
Right.
Yes,
That's exactly his point.
yes. And that's the number we can get. I mean, that's the number we can get and run the numbers, Gary, and show them to you and show them to everybody in that neighborhood and,
And if it's, and I do wanna point out right now, the city does have a piece of property if you need to put infrastructure on it.
Yes.
We do have that right now.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It has not gone up for sale yet.
which property is that?
The old water tower thing?
The water tower?
Where the old water tower was.
Corner lot.
Oh, yeah, that was right there where I lived.
Right in the center.
And are you saying you're donating that property? No, seriously.
No, it could be a lift station,
No,
that's-
That could be
Yes.
an option.
Right.
That could be an option. I can't speak for the council like that, but, you know, I mean.
You could probably sell it.
I sense that there were several members that were more amenable to a vacuum type system in that area. And if that's what it would take, I think that would be a nice contribution to that if you needed that piece of property.
My takeaway from that was, I think the council was even gonna offset our added cost for the vacuum sewer. I think that's what I heard the council.
It was 1.8, if I remember, wasn't it? They were gonna
They
donate?
did, but the caveat was I think they wanted to have some of the percentage of the
They wanted a host fee, is what it's called.
Exactly.
But to get back to you, not to interrupt, John, but to get back to you, we will get John to do that. It's just, you're looking at 3 million versus, when we get it into the ground, it's gonna be 6.5 or 7 million. So,
How much maintenance can we do for $7 million?
yeah, and
$4 million.
how long does that push those people off getting a sewer, do they get it in a year? Cause we can probably do this in a year and a half.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. All we're gonna be out is the design fees we've already spent for the low-pressure system, but the surveying and all that will be reused, so it's not a total.
Right, but to get funded for the 7 million, or 6.5 to 7 million, could push the project back.
Well, that's what I articulated to the council, that anything we do other than what Sumner has done right now is gonna extend the end time.
Yeah.
Because if we have to start over again, even though we do have a lot done, it's not gonna be done in 18 months, it's gonna be done down.
And
that's not good.
the city council can go talk to the guy that lives at the end of the road down there and explain it to him. Cause I've done made that trip once.
I do it in public.
But we get your concern.
Thank you, Gary.
We do get your concern.
You know where we are now, so you can come back often. We really like to have you here.
And we appreciate you all coming to this.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Okay, anything else we want to discuss on the item number 2? Item number 3. Advanced metering infrastructure. I think we've pretty much decided we're gonna put that off till we get the,
We see what the numbers.
see what the numbers are.
Correct.
So can we move past this?
I would.
Unless John has something else he'd like to say.
No, I'm trying to get you the information, y'all tell me.
He went pure Cadillac salesman on us.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. Yeah. Like that Cadillac salesman.
That being said,
So we'll just put that on hold till tomorrow and
Right.
breeze through, it, okay?
agenda item number 4, the 66-acre property sale.
So, the way it ended up last board meeting, there was a discussion about a couple things. One, on some of the alignments of the property and how they would fit in together to size appropriately. But one of the last ones was the 12 acres that we were gonna keep with our existing pond. Could we move that pond or build another pond on the Flores property and then be able to sell that 12 acres with the other adjoining pieces? And so I did look into it. We generate about anywhere from 75 to 100,000 gallons a day that we need to dispose of. That pond, for that size, could fit on the Flores property. So we really come down to what is the cost for the pond. And the only thing I could come up with was originally the 12-acre site pond was constructed for a little over $250,000. So I just put a budget number of $300,000 on the pond on the Flores property. Well, at $300,000, to make it a wash, the 12 acres would have to sell for $25,000 net, so there's no money out of pocket. It's a wash. But when you look at it, if we get to sell the 12 acres, but it has to go into the construction of a pond, we, the OUA, has roughly lost the money for that 12 acres, even though the pond construction didn't cost us anything out of pocket. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back up to the board, that again, by tomorrow, if they're discussing it, whether we go forward with the moving of the pond, and if we do that, then the sales are delayed for a certain time period till we get the pond built, or if the pond construction isn't a viable option, then what minor tweaking do we do with the sales price? And I can bring back to you, the sales agent, the realtor, or how we're gonna, the mechanics for actually selling the property.
Didn't you say you had somebody that was really interested?
I heard a rumor that somebody was interested in the property.
Did they throw any kind of number out?
Nothing.
And there's 69 acres in there, including the 12-acre pond.
It's roughly 65 plus the other one.
I don't know, I'm just thinking way over in left field here, guys. Why not ask Roland Durance if he'd trade that piece next to us for that piece of land down there? 11 acres for 48 or whatever. Clyde's old place. It's up for sale.
I know the realtor that is listing it. I mean, we can always reach out.
I'm just thinking out of the, I mean,
That's definitely not the box.
That's a right-hand turn for sure.
I don't wanna hold this meeting up on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just something,
Yeah, well,
I'm trying to figure out which piece you're talking about.
Clyde's house.
Oh, Clyde's house.
He's
Oh,
all
that
up for
joins the
sale.
plant.
It joins plant.
It's all right there.
There's 11 acres in there.
Oh, you're talking about swapping the balance of the 66 for,
I don't know if they'd do it. I mean, it was just I don't know that we would want to do it, but I'm just thinking again.
you said 25,000 an acre, right?
I was just saying to trade off the $300,000 price tag if the 12 acres sold for 25 an acre.
you're talking about keeping the pond, there, right?
I mean, you'd have to, I don't know that you
You
could.
don't have to have that pond or a facility like that.
Yeah. But you'd have the 25,000, if you got 25,000 an acre for that piece of property back there, I'd turn backflips. You know. But again, just,
I can reach out if that's what you want.
no, guys, I just threw that out there. I doubt they would do it,
It's
but
a house we gotta do something with.
yeah, you'd have to tear it down.
You got a demolition cost there. It'd be nice, but the only up I can see is it joins us. What would we use the property for?
Cattle lease,
No, I mean, it eventually,
we'd sell it.
I mean, we've already got excess on these
we got
Flores
10 acres on
property.
the other side, we could actually build offices over there if we ever wanted to go down that way in the future. Again, guys, there's nothing, I just,
I can reach out to him.
I wouldn't
Well,
at this point.
I wouldn't reach out to him?
No,
I don't, not till you get board direction, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't
You know,
reach
I think we're right now determining as a workshop, are we still interested in selling it? And are we gonna move the pond or not move the pond? If we do list it, you know, these options at this point, then we'll bring it back tomorrow and decide what we wanna do.
Well, from a staff perspective, the pond that we have now works. Moving it is a cost, capital cost, $200,000 anyway. The deal is, by moving it and having that additional cost, is that really gonna offset selling more acreage, you know, going from 40-some odd acres back up to 60 acres, because we sell that 12? My point being, I don't know that it does, so.
Well, you got a better piece of property without the pond on it.
you got a more sellable piece of property without the pond on it. There's no doubt about that. Have you reached out to any, like a Douglas Construction or B&B or anybody, just give a price on?
No, I have not. I just used the price of building the existing pond, which is bigger than what we need at that time, which was years ago, was 10-plus years ago, was a little over $250,000. Since,
But I guess I'm trying to understand, what's the point of doing the pond?
You have to have it.
I mean, as far, okay.
So I'm just the only reason I said what I did the other day is to have it on the property that we own next door and be able to sell that whole piece down there,
Right.
which makes
To make
it,
it more marketable.
it makes it more marketable.
But other than the marketing.
But if
the
at
piece of it,
$25,000
that's my
an
point.
acre, it
You're not
doesn't-
gonna- I don't see
we're
how
not
you can
gaining
get that.
Right, but my point too is let's ask Ira Douglas or B&B or one of those guys local what they would charge to put in,
Get a drag line out there and dig a hole.
yeah, to dike it up and it might be $500,000, you never know, but
Does it
it's
have
not
to be
gonna hurt to
lined?
ask.
no, sir.
It's not lined.
And that, it's just,
It's not a liner. All it is, you gotta have a perk test
in the dike built.
and the dike built.
Why would that be $250,000?
That's my point.
Call call and find out.
Cause you'd be scraping and diking, I would think. Tommy, I'm not in that work, but
I'm not either, I mean, but I'm just thinking that, I know what we done dikes for down there, and it wasn't nothing like that.
You're not hauling fill in, you're,
Oh, yeah,
fill you have.
Yeah,
you
you're
most
just,
likely are gonna have to all fill in, but we'll see. Because you don't wanna dig it down. If you dig it down, now you're getting closer to the water table, then it doesn't work as well as a percolation pond.
You
But
will have to pull.
well, it depends on what size wall, I mean, what size dike's gotta go around. You pull a ditch around the outside as deep as you want it.
I don't know.
Cause you're holding it inside, that's the way everybody builds a reservoir.
Right. I guess, does it have an outlet?
yes, has
It's
to
got
have.
an overflow outlet.
Yes, sir?
It's got an
Has to have
overflow
it.
outlet.
Yes, sir.
And if you ditch around the outside to bring it in, you can still contain your own water on your property and for that much longer with the outside perimeter ditch. I'd at least get a price on whatever size pond we don't need a 12, you
It
said,
says
right?
7 to 8, preliminary estimate size of the pond is 7 to 8 acres, right?
Right.
Okay. On Flores property.
Yeah, I would call a local vendor. And again, I know Ira and them and even the Good Bread Boys has got a backhoe now. I mean, that's B&B.
How much engineering's involved with that?
Very little, just the permitting, and then you gotta design the, berm.
You know what?
Got to bring a pipe from the
Oh,
water
right.
plant over, which is already in place for the other, so that would be the.
Yeah, it's pretty close, it's pretty close, so that's gonna be minimal.
Right.
And then you'll have to have the outfall piping going to some discharge point. We can figure that one out. So, I mean, there's gonna be a little bit in piping, but, well,
I don't-
we'll see. We'll try to get.
Again, I could be way off base, but I can't see $250,000 to dike up 7 or 8 acres.
And that'll all have to be engineered too and permitted, correct?
Yes.
See, that's not gonna take much.
And again, you're gonna have to have perk test.
Yep.
Hey, it's worth looking into.
It's worth looking at.
And again, it gives John's overheard person, rumor,
The Okeechobee rumor mill.
a
I hear
better
this,
piece
but I
of
ain't telling you
property.
no names. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I got
A few calls.
22 and a half left.
Well, the other is to change the alignment of the pond itself, make it run north-south.
Okay.
I mean,
But that still leaves you 3 acres of that 10-acre block.
It,
or
it,
2
it
acres up
does
on the front.
free, yes, I mean, yeah, I
And
mean,
if we can't build an office 10 years from now on 2 acres, we need to quit.
I'll work on it.
All right. Are we ready to move past the?
I am.
Yes, I think we've dredged up enough stuff to use the word dredge. Okay, item number 5, building rehabilitation and property purchase.
So again, we have looked in the past of whether we rehabilitate or try to do something with this to create more office space, or we looked at several different buildings around town to purchase. Of course, there were the one building, the surgery center fell by the wayside, way too much money, too big of a building, too much remodeling. Nice building, good property, but it just was gonna require a lot of work.
I heard it's gonna go back to in use for the hospital eventually.
So the second building we looked at was the old Big Lake Bank Seacoast building down by the wonderful traffic circle that we all have near and dear to our heart on 441 Southeast. And that building is out there. We got an appraisal. The appraisal came in at 707, higher than the property appraiser's value. The asking price was upwards of 960. But the concern was that there were board members that said, talking to town council or city fathers or business, that we didn't need to move from this site. So the question is, if the deal is that there cannot be a supermajority vote to move, then as staff, I'm just saying, can we take that off of the plate and focus on this building?
I'd focus on fixing the roof, and I think I would follow Melanie's lead. Let's fix the roof and let's sit tight.
At a minimum, we do need to fix the roof, actually replace the roof. Jamie and John Roofing Company fixed at least one of the leaks, but we haven't found where the other one is. But, yeah, I did get some information. I just happened to look it up. It was '05 or '06 when we replaced this roof, and I think the number was $171,000. So with the architecture and the roof inspector, it was around 200 grand to replace this roof. It might be time to look at replacing the roof. At the very least, I would suggest we bring in a roofing inspector to look at this roof and tell us where we're at with either trying to do repairs or whether their recommendation is to replace it. To give me, a non-roofing person, a guidance as to what we should do with this building. Because we have to fix the water leak.
Yeah, I would look at, I mean, you got 3 votes apparently with Melanie now that's not gonna move, so.
Well, again, that just gives me direction, and I would just ask that by tomorrow, if a motion is made or a decision, give us direction as far as staff, what the board's overall policy, guidance, and procedure should be, so we could focus on where we need to focus.
And I have a question.
Sure.
You have the minor improvements listed here in the agenda, in the agenda items. So minor interior improvements, can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Well, the minor interior would be whether or not carpeting is worn and dirty, needs to be replaced. We can connect the dots with the spots out there if you'd like, but, or if we can figure out if we're going to be moving people around, whether walls can be moved to create office space, or if that's not feasible in some of the office space that we have, do we purchase partition walls and cubicles to maximize? And again, that would have to be done under that guidance. Again, we would hire an architect, space planner, to look at what we have, the people that we have, and they would provide us the guidance and, more importantly, what those estimated costs would be should we go down that path. That would be the long range, because you don't want me picking colors or anything like that. I mean, that's just, it's not gonna be.
We heard about that Sunday.
It would be, just to put it correctly, there would be some more tinging of orange and blue in this office as opposed to garnet and gold or silver and black. I mean, just, what, Mr. Clay? So that being
I
said.
have to protest.
So to that effect, that's what the interior, but immediately, the easy things to check the box is to pressure wash and clean up the outside, paint, that type of deal. That would have to be done after whatever.
We gotta get the roof fixed.
Yes, it's beyond where we're at.
'Cause if you wanna come look at the stars tonight, just come to the old movie theater, I got the keys, and we can go to the front row and look right out. The roofs fell in.
So that's kind of where, from a staff
Same roof.
perspective,
You want direction on whether to continue negotiate, or conversation with Seacoast or, not, isn't that what you basically said?
It's sort of like tomorrow during the board meeting, some kind of clear direction, rather than me, I'm not gonna say spinning my wheels, but going one direction, but we're gonna stay here. I don't mind tell me the direction and we'll go get it done, whatever it is.
That's the reason I never reached out to Alex. We didn't have board decision on, let's go and see what the price is. If there's 2 board members that have said they're not gonna
Sounds like
support the
3.
move,
Sounds like 3 now.
they are not gonna support the move, I wasn't gonna do any more work on it. I was just doing it as information purposes only, so.
And again, I think Melanie has a valid point. I really do, and I don't wanna kick that bucket any further, but I think she's got a valid point with what we're starting to see, with construction being put on hold in places and stuff, so.
We'll have an answer for you tomorrow.
Good. I mean, I'm assuming we can do a motion. If it's not, if it's just by board direction, if our council says a board direction, that's fine. But tomorrow is the meeting, so either way, direction would be great.
We'll do that.
Very good. Agenda item number 6, salary review.
So again, another item that took, a couple things to look through, lots of information. I'll go through it as quickly as you want me to. Much of this was brought up at the last, it was provided in the last board package. So some of this is repetitive, but we'll kind of go through it. Please stop me as you get to it, and then.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John.
Go? Okay. So what we have here is, the first topic is, we all know the state mandated constitutional deal, minimum wage going up by 2026 to $15 an hour. So the OUA kind of got a little bit of a jump on this, and we have started the process to where by 2026, we will be well above the $15, no, I shouldn't say, we'll be above the $15 an hour. And where you can get that is on the next page. When you look at this table, this is a very important table in that it shows how over years, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, up through 23, where the OUA has directed money to be spent on salaries, whether it was a COLA, whether it was a merit increase, whether it was a bonus, or starting in 22 and continued this year, we across the board raised salaries by $2.35 to everybody, trying to keep up with this mandated minimum. So when you look at it, starting in 2020, the difference between where the state minimum was and our lowest pay grade, the delta was $3.41 between the state mandated minimum, which was $8.56 at the time, and our minimum of $11.97. And as time, you can see that as the state minimum started to climb, the OUA's infusion of money has kept that delta at about a $3.40 difference between the state mandated minimum and the OUA minimum. So we have kept on par with the state increase, keeping in mind that this doesn't keep up with the cost of living that may have been different things as far as with what's happening out there. Merit increases to the minimum, but we have kept in with the bonus. So we're keeping steady. Is that keeping up with what is out there on the street? Y'all can see what happens out there with salaries. It may or may not have kept up to it, because right now, for this year, our minimum salary lowest is $14.44 an hour. That's raw labor, not the multiplied labor, what I actually see, by the time you put in the pension and the accidental death and dismemberment, FICA, and, all the other things that add on to it, which probably raise that to something considerably higher than $14.44. But that's where we're at.
So if I'm looking at this chart correctly, even at 2023, are we still gonna have employees below the $15 per hour?
Ma'am?
Are we going to have employees still below $15?
At 2023, the minimum state is at 11, and our lowest is at 14.41, $3.
We're still gonna have folks below $15 come 2023.
Yes, ma'am. We have projected forward these dollar increases, like on the front page, to get us that when it gets to 2026, is it? Our minimum is gonna be above 15, it'll be at like $18 and change, $19.
So am I looking at this correctly then? We still will have employees making $14.44 in 2023. Why would we not just go ahead and automatically bring those employees up to $15?
We can. Well, we can, and one of the things that I suggested before, one of the options is for next year, there's already, a proposed dollar increase to keep this minimum up with the state. It's not budgeted, but it's in the projection. We could bring that whole dollar to this year at a cost of something less than 156,000 because we're into the year, and it would make that minimum wage now 15.44.
But at 15.44, you're gonna be $20 an hour with your package. So,
With insurance and all that, yeah, probably.
yeah, so you asked me to ask around, and I have. I did not get the big one that I wanted, but, a 3-year employee running a backhoe, little rubber tired backhoe, read a set of blueprints, okay. He's at $32.50 an hour, right here in town, today. A guy to sweep up, to do construction cleanup, scrape the floors, do all that stuff, stack it in a dumpster, $15. A guy that can read a tape and work a shovel, can't run a piece of equipment, is $17.50. All right, on the construction side inside, now this, guys, this is all information straight from them to me. A guy inside the building that does nothing but hold it and hand it. That's his job. So that guy don't have to get off the scaffold to get screws or get whatever. That's his whole focus in life, is to pick stuff up and hand it to that guy. 15 is what they're paying. The wash rack over here is, cheapest guy on the wash rack's $21 an hour. That's not including package. The senior mechanic over there is a guy that I put in that position. He's at $33.50, and he's got 25 years in. Cheapest guy in the shop over there is $21 an hour. Retail sales, as far as clothing and all, $14.50 to $19, right up the street. So it's, everybody is worked above that, to that 15 is their dead drop. They said the two of the businessmen I talked to said 15 gets you a body. So, and that's from standing there going, what's that guy? What, and I did. What do you pay that guy? What do you pay that guy? And they told me. So I think we have to we need to be at 15 now, I think, on our start. But the part that's hard is these guys that have been with us all these years are way behind, including him. I'm not, he's way behind on his pay. And it's a hard deal to figure out how we're gonna be able to keep people, because John, how many people are you short now?
It's not as bad, but it's probably at least 2. And to help you out there, it's not that, it's the people you do get to apply.
Right.
Or not, it's not the
It's
sharpest knife.
it's the guy that stands and holds and hands. And I get it, it's not a knock, but you get what you pay for. And right now, talking to past employees, and there's a couple that I've talked to, one in particular who thinks you and you both need to be fired today and gone. He made no bones about it, which I don't agree with, and you know that, so. But there's also people here that I've spoken to that work here that are not satisfied, that would take a job for a couple more dollars an hour. So we have to figure out how we hold on to these guys that are now starting to step up. The 2-year guy, the 3-year guy, that's your bread and butter.
That's the future of this company.
And
And the thing too, Tommy, that I wanted to add in is we're talking experience in a lot of cases, where we have people here that are cross-trained to do other things. So it's not just a cookie cutter position. I mean, we're expecting people to do more
And they get
addition to their
classified.
job. Right. And
they get locked into a
classified.
classification here.
Yes.
And I'll go back to what you guys, all of y'all have said about the mechanic. He's not just a mechanic, he's a welder, he's a fabricator, he's a, whatever you need him to be. And again, I know the guy in passing, but it was brought to my attention, hey, take this one particular deal and look at it. So that's what it, and they did that for a reason, because I know mechanics and I deal in that life. So I look at what that guy makes versus what he could be making on the coast, at a dealership, at a heavy truck dealership. He's a $125,000-$130,000 a year guy, period. With,
With or without certification?
without.
See, and that's where I wanted to have this conversation, because John and I have talked about this, we're looking more for experience now than we are a person carrying a card. So we need to be doing that at this level as well.
Talked to Denny Ross. Denny Ross owns Kenworth that we bought our dump truck from. He cannot get anybody to, and this is in outskirts of Jacksonville, so I mean, he is in a different, but he can't get anybody to answer the phone for less than $20 an hour. He can't get anybody to show up to work for less than $20 an hour. And his top mechanics are at $130 a year. So we can never do that. We know that. But my point is, we have to figure out how we get this whole thing up to where it needs to be. And,
I don't think there's anybody on this board that objects to that. We need to pay our people and compensate them for what they're worth, but we need to know how we're gonna pay for it.
exactly.
And if, when I had my business, when it was raise time, I could pass it on to my customers, and that's how I paid for it. We don't have that option really, to put the burden on the ratepayers. So come up with a plan, guys, and you got my support, but that's what it's gonna take, is how are we gonna pay for it?
Well, we've got $1 in there for this year.
Yep.
And $1 is gonna cost us another $1 will cost us $154,000, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And we've got that number in, we always have 600,000 left over. We can find this,
One-time shotgun.
yeah, but we're at 600,000 every year, and we continually budget that 120%.
But didn't you say, John, earlier, that just rolls over, that money rolls over to make this?
We put it,
For the year, when you throw it all in, what we project to go into different cubbies in the budget versus when the audit is done and we got $6,000 worth of gas spent instead of 10,000 or what. There's a total of about 635,000 that we could use towards whatever you wanted to. What I was showing you earlier was going towards annual debt service payment. But if it went towards the 155, then okay, it goes towards the 155.
And
There's a couple things in here that were projected as options
Right.
that the board could consider.
well, the one thing, and you talked to me a little bit about that the other day, about paying an extra $1, or paying on their insurance gives them $1. I think that's something we would need to actually ask the employees. Would you rather have the raise, or would you rather have us make it up on your insurance side?
So that would help their family burden that they have if we went to 900 from 750, then basically with
Well,
150,000.
And now, there's two things here. The $1 is just $1. It's $154,000 extra it costs
But
us.
then we got Social Security, we got everything, all the burden on top
Right,
of that.
right. Well, no,
Just make sure I'm right.
no, that's where the 155 figures in.
It does, that's total. that's
$1
total
an
burden.
hour per person across the board doesn't cost me $52,000, because there's 52. It costs 155 when you throw in
So it's
all,
included.
it's
It's all
the
inclusive.
multiplied labor rate.
Gotcha.
So my point being, we've already got $1 in for this year. I think it needs to be 2. At minimum. I think you need to be looking at trying to hire people. That would put you at what, 14?
15. Oh, it would,
No, I mean, if you add $2 to it, it's 1644. You're gonna start,
23s.
it,
So we're getting ready to,
so at that point, now you're starting to maybe get a better guy, but back to your deal with the insurance. I think that's something that the people that we're talking about, the employees need to make that decision. I think we need to give them these $2 right now. I think that needs to be done. then talk to them about what you were talking about on the insurance side of it, and see how we pay for that. Because right now, John, you've been in business, I've been in business, I've worked for a lot of businesses, and I've seen businesses lose money because of their staff.
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
Gary, did you
Make
have
you or
anything
break
you
you.
would like to add, or
Well, sure.
from the city standpoint, because he's got.
I can share with you right now that we've had these discussions with the city. There's no one at the city currently employed with us that's making less than $15. I was listening to some of the comparisons, and I know some of those jobs, though, don't provide insurance coverage. So, that to me is a big thing. And I'll take, because somebody making $15 an hour is roughly making 31.2 a year. And with the city's insurance package, that roughly runs about a $10,000 value to the employee, that brings them up to 41.2, and they're now at $19.8 an hour, if you wanna include that.
And I totally get it, but when you talk to a guy in the street, like that operator down there at 3250, you know what he told me?
He can't eat that in.
Yes, I can't eat that insurance, he's got 3 kids and he doesn't have insurance.
Yeah, and that's,
And he doesn't, he can't,
He'll be my age.
yeah, but the problem is, and Gary, not to interrupt you, I knew you guys were at 15, I know some of the guys are at 1570, so I kind of backed into that by talking to some of your people, on the ground. And, but right now, this workforce that we have, these young guys, they're concerned with one thing, feeding their family.
It's here and now, yeah.
It's here and now, and the one guy told me, he says, I could be dead in a month. How do you argue with that?
I'm gonna miss you.
It's hard to fight with that mindset, but I will tell you that we do have in our budget,
That's what I was
whether or
gonna
not
say.
we're gonna be able to get to it this year, is, we want to do a salary survey for the folks that are, currently working with us under all positions. And we would kind of like, because we don't have, there's some positions that don't have another level to go to. So they're kind of stuck within that range, they can work their way up, but they're gonna stay at that position.
top out.
We'd
They peaked
like
out.
to try to incorporate positions in between those, maybe a maintenance mechanic 1, a maintenance mechanic 2, things like that. So we're gonna try to bring somebody in, we're gonna see, what the cost is of getting, a salary survey done for our group. We have roughly 60 employees. We're having the same issue with our police department, because when the state raised the sheriff's department's salaries,
They left.
that put us behind the 8 ball. So this particular budget year, we, did some creative thinking in an effort to get our guys at least back equal to the guys at the sheriff's department. Otherwise, we're gonna lose them. And we're already losing them to the coast.
Yeah.
But the thing that we try to tell those folks, especially law enforcement that go over to the coast, number one, it's more dangerous, and you're gonna probably end up working longer hours. So when you start comparing, it's not apples and oranges sometimes. And some of them that have gone over there have realized that. So,
But they can't afford to come back. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
mean-
They can't afford to come back even though.
And of course, I think too, we're still, the cost of living here is still a little bit less than what it is if you go to the ports.
It used to be $12,000 on a base deputy difference between here and Martin County. So it's $1,000 a month, and that's why they leave. And they got all the you know, the special duty, they call it, where they're paying $70 and $80 to sit on the turnpike on their off hours at a construction site and stuff. So there's so much of that available over there to the guy that's eager to make money. But you're right, the operator, he didn't have insurance. The mechanic does. The mechanic has a good retirement, good insurance.
Especially if you go like a place like Gilbert's.
Yes.
Gilbert
I didn't get any of their numbers, but they had their same thing. I work for Williamson Cattle, and I've got great benefits. I know, who in the world ever thought that Wes and them, I just started with them, but they have great benefits. And they're matching, so there's things that people are doing in this community that, yeah, I mean,
gotta cut, look outside.
yeah, and they're very competitive, and again, back to you, thank you for that, but I'd already spoke to a couple of your guys, and they told me that they were in that $15 to $16 range.
And Gary, what were you all budgeting for this year, this coming year? What was the COLA and that type of
Oh,
thing?
actually, it was, 4.5.
4.5%.
Yes, 4.5 COLA.
Mhm.
And then in June, the performance, was a 1.5,
So
so
the
it was
merit,
6.
wow,
So 6%,
It's nice.
yeah.
so,
I have one question. Yeah, on the health care, do you pay for the health care for just the employee,
Just
family?
the employees, not the family. Now, I will tell you that you bring your family in, our healthcare plan is very expensive. Very expensive.
I mean, it's, for me to go get a private policy, I just checked, cost Diane and I, we're both over 60. And, best I could do for a good policy was about $24.50, $24.80 a month for both of us.
So, I think.
Thank you.
I just wanted to correct one thing that you were saying. $1 an hour is already factored in for this year. What this was proposing is just to go ahead and add another dollar to that, so it's not 300,000, it would just be the 155.
Yes.
And they would end up ultimately getting a $2 an hour increase for this year. So the 1444 would go up to 1544, because it's already incorporating that dollar now.
So
Just
the
wanted-
graduated scale, you've got to 26, that would take one of those dollars and move it back.
Or,
Isn't that what it is?
no, I'm just saying,
I think,
you'll have to work that, that's what I was proposing. But we haven't even budgeted for those other years, so you might keep it and just still do another, it's whatever. I just said it was already planned, so it was very easy to justify it because we know we have to do it anyway.
Right.
So it's not like we're jumping it by 1 year.
Right.
and again, that gives us a whole nother year to figure out how to do this to catch up some more.
Right. And something too, I mean, John and I had talked about this too, and then Gary brought up a good point, is some type
Classification.
of besides the classification, but some type of salary survey.
So we do have that. We have gotten some of that from looking at other utilities, trying to gauge where they are. So there are names out there, but clearly they're in that business to look at our rate of pay, our benefit package, and compare that to other both community-type organizations, because we have to compete against the janitor service or the construction service or whatever, but also other public utilities, whether that's going to be FPUA or Vero Beach or Seacoast or wherever. So we could try to put together a cost for that service and bring it back for board consideration to say, yes, there is a viable alternative there.
That's pulling us down the same rabbit hole we're in.
What's that?
Everybody's classified, and we need someone that's not gonna come in and compare us to the coast. We need someone that's gonna come in and look at our employees' experience level and then compare that to the market industry. And when I say market industry, I mean what that same guy can make. And we know our benefits are great, we know that. But we also know that we've got young guys that don't care anything about that right now, and they're the future of this company. If we can hold on to them till they understand that, you know, when they get his age. But we have no building blocks, is what I'm trying to say. And, I mean, y'all just hired Spook Whitten from us. I mean, he's my age.
I think with the performance, if you get somebody to do a performance evaluation, basically, I think what you all have is a salary range with a minimum, midpoint, maximum. So basically, what they're gonna come in and do is let's say you tell them, we wanna be in the top 15% of the same type of industry within the state of Florida. What they're gonna do is look at the salary range, and they will, let's say that they're gonna come in, and then we'll adjust the minimum, the maximum, and the midpoint. And then if you've got people experienced, or if you're hiring people who are experienced, your salary range is gonna be adjusted upward, plus you're gonna have that latitude to bring people in between the minimum and the midpoint, which is what we've started doing now too.
And I get that, but I come from the outside world where we don't cap people, you know, and when you start, and again, this system's worked forever, but we need to be able to improve on it. I mean, if you want to go hire a guy that's got 25 years in a plant that can do anything in the world, and our top pay is going to be, what can you start him at, John? A plant, water treatment supervisor A. I mean, you can start him,
2464, plant supervisor A, wastewater's 20.
yeah, 2464. That's no money, guys. That's no money. Not in the real world, that's no money.
But the starting, I hear what you're saying, Tommy, but the starting pay, we just looked at hiring an A operator. Wanted to go to work for us. Happy with where we're gonna start him, in between that low.
Where were you gonna start him?
I think it was either 28 or 29.
Okay, so that's above. what
Oh,
you-
yeah, we don't always start them at a minimum. We never have. We never have, unless they don't have anything, then they're gonna, but because we've had the point where people come in and say, oh, I can operate this equipment, that equipment, so you bump them up, and you put them on a piece of equipment, they tip it over.
I understand that.
Now what do you do? So the deal is, you kind of in your probationary period prove where your skill sets are and so forth. But to your point, we were gonna hire an operator that we needed, but the deal killer was where he was currently at, they offered, I think it was up to $1,300 insurance. And we only offer $750. And that's a $600 a month hit. So at 160 hours in a month, that was like $4 that he gave up by coming to work here. Probably
Well, our
more than that.
mechanic's been here 21 years and he makes 24, 26 an hour. He's also a mechanic and a fabricator. And if he had the notion to drive 25 miles, thanks, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't mean to do your job, sorry. But when you look at this, you know, you've got just a handful of guys that are, well, on this list, I've only got one guy at 30. So, and I'm sure there's more, but 24 years at $27, 21 years, $24, 20 years, $23, and 26 years, $24. So let's say he started at $6 an hour and he's been here 26 years. It's not very much that, not much increases. And that's my point, and I don't wanna beleaguer this, and
Just a question, tell me, well, how is that comparable to other utilities with a person with the same amount of experience?
we're not competing against other utilities in
But I'm just
Okeechobee.
curious. Just curious.
I'm competing against Gilbert Chevrolet and Walpole Incorporated and the, right?
Well, yeah, but that's hard to do apples and oranges, but I know that's, well, that's reality we have to look at.
We have, that's what we're doing
But it's
though.
very tough to set a
That's
line
his
in the
point.
sand with that, but we have to.
I mean, you know, they can always go to the tribe. So, you know, what I'm saying is we have to find that middle ground. No way can we compete with these big entities, but we have to be where a guy like, well, I'm not gonna go over there and for $14.44 an hour, because that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at our 22% package or 30% package, whatever it is. They're looking at that dollar amount.
What's being able to pay the bills.
And they, you know, you take a guy with 3 kids,
Have to look at the 30%. We have to look at that.
we have to look at
So
that,
we have
but,
to figure out where we're gonna get it to make it right.
yeah, but if, my point is, and we just said this, your people are what either make you successful or take you out. And I want you guys to think for a minute. You take away our senior guys right now. You, Jess Manson, Jamie Gamagati, John, what we got? Where we at? No, I mean, no. Jamie, where are we at? We're in deep. That's my point.
I thought there was a critter under here. It was my cord. Thought something had me.
And again, I just want everybody to think about it and keep it in their mind, how are we gonna get these guys up to a level playing field? And, you know, these guys on these construction sites work many hours, a lot of them work as many hours as they want, you know, so they're, I mean, I got a buddy driving all the way to, Palm Beach, Broward County line to run a backhoe, but he's making $55 an hour. So, we
Hit it right
can't.
on the head. We gotta figure out where we're gonna, how
we-
we're gonna do it.
How we're gonna get to that point to attract these people in here.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are against any of the things that we're proposing. It's just, we gotta figure out how we're going to do it.
I had a boss that I worked for 20 years when I was in HR and he said, his analogy was you've got a big bucket and you're pouring money in the top and you got the spigot at the bottom and you gotta make that work, so.
Ed Walpole said, there's a pile of money in the corner, boys, you can use all of it you want, but you damn sure better put back more than you took out.
So,
Simple
that's
philosophy.
our
And you,
task.
well, yeah, and when you look at the cost, when we lose someone and all the training and the time and everything else that goes into it, and then the experience that's walked out the door, there's a price on that. And we
Just
have
like
to
you-
figure out,
You just said that y'all basically are a training facility.
yeah.
Yes,
We are.
yeah.
We are.
And it-
We have.
To hire a new truck driver today, from the day you interview him to the day you put him in a truck, costs you about $4,200.
Especially if you're doing CDLs and everything else.
Yes.
I mean, no, that's a CDL driver that's ready to go. But the time you get him on the hook, you get him through all your orientations and everything, it's about a $4,200. Some people are spending $5,000 and $6,000.
So you have to,
Yeah.
you have to factor that in. I mean, we're talking about how much we're not going to do, but again,
But again, we need to move on. I'm sorry.
So-
That's where I'm at, and that's,
Well,
okay.
Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna try to finish up. So the idea, we talked about, one of the easy things is you provide $1 an hour, which is considered a COLA, whatever you wanna consider it. It's around 155,000, in addition to the dollar we already gave them, so it's $2 an hour. So that minimum wage, lowest, 15.44. I will say this, at 14.44, we have no employees at that level. The lowest level is around 15.7. But we gotta start somewhere. There is a trainee position, so conceivably you could ask that person that knows nothing at that, but I think our lowest one is now at 15.70. But you could do the $1 an hour. The other thing that we talked about is with the healthcare expenses, I hear what you're saying, you should ask the employee. But I gave you a table, there's at least 36 of our employees out of the 50 that if the money was bumped up from 750 to 800, they would see a $50 an hour a month increase to their salary. Because right now, they're paying out of pocket for that healthcare expenses. And then this 800, 850, and 900, you can see the breakdown of how many employees. It's not across the board, not everybody benefits, but those numbers would see that money in their pocket because they're having to pay out of pocket for the insurance they already have. Next year, if that 750 is up to 800 or 850 or 900, there may be more employees choosing more insurance because they didn't want to pay out of pocket this year. They might choose a dental plan or vision or something and utilize that money. So I just throw that out there, that if we want to have several different ways to help all employees or some employees, I'm just trying to give you that option. You could move the 750 to 800, 850, or 900. The benefit that we would see administratively is that multiplied labor rate that causes it, the pension and the FICA and stuff, doesn't apply. So it is out there as a choice that, you know, I'm trying to give you choices, and that is one that you can implement now, and it does benefit a select group of people, not everybody. The other option is, next month, you've elected to give a performance bonus of 1.5% to people. You could consider making that a 3% performance bonus. They get it right now across the board to everybody. So I'm trying to give you some options other than just impacting the hourly wage, which benefits everybody. There are some other options where we can get money in people's pocket relatively quickly right now.
And why are we calling that a performance bonus that we would give to everyone?
We'll have to ask our counselor down there, or then we have to change the name.
The performance part makes me a little nervous.
It came back to state statutes as to how you can give it to people, and it has to be based upon something criteria that you offer to all, and it's that performance bonus.
Okay, so are you going to be doing performance evaluations as a part of that?
We do that
You have
anyway
to.
every year.
Yeah, I realize, but you've already done your performance evaluations, have you not?
We do that every year, even if a merit increase is not authorized. We still do it because it's a way to communicate between the supervisors and the people that they monitor, what they're doing really good, where they are doing so good, or areas of improvement. So we do performance monitoring anyway.
Okay, so my question is, you've already done those performance evaluations for the year?
We will do it before that goes out in December.
Okay.
The supervisors will do a performance review of all their employees.
Right, but have we already done them for the year?
I don't know exactly when they do them. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Because the reason I'm asking is if you have someone that we've already done a review on and they score a 2, but yet when we do this performance bonus at the end of the year and we give them equal amount of a 3% bonus as everybody else and their prior performance wasn't there, how do you
There is the merit performance
that's my
review.
concern.
We do the merit performance, which there is no merit performance for this year as far as budgeted right now. That is on one scale, and they do that performance review. The budgetary performance review is a slightly different performance review for the bonus.
We started giving out bonuses, Tabitha, when we couldn't, we had some money, and it was a one-time deal,
Right.
and we don't, I mean, you don't have to do it every year.
Right, but I know that had to be retitled, if you will, because of an article or something like that that came out or what have you. But I'm concerned about performance. If we've already done a performance review for the year and someone's score was a 2,
Then he should be fired.
well, but then we turn around next month and we give them a 3% and their score is still a 2. What did they do between now and then to ante up the game? If you
We're
were
also-
challenged, if you were
but we're-
challenged.
But we're also looking at giving everybody a $2 an hour raise across the board so that we don't have that guy that scores a 2.
Yeah, but it's still,
If it's any consolation, the performance bonus, whether you give one or whether you give two, you're still gonna, if you do two, you're gonna give them two performance reviews. It's based upon how you are right now. So I don't know if that helps you out at all. It's a different performance review than what we do now annually, because that's tied to what we've done in the past with merit increases. So it's a different performance, it's much more detailed. They're just not the same performance reviews.
It's all about title, and that title, I think, is what's making us a little edgy. When the company
Yeah,
I came
it's-
from,
yeah.
we ended up titling it a safety award type thing that they would get at Christmas if they went all year without filing a workman's comp claim, an accident claim like that. That way, we got around it.
Yeah, this
And you-
performance
and-
bothers me.
For the record, right now, you do give them a safety award because the insurance plan that we're in, when we score good, they, for lack of a better term, return some of our investment. And in the past, what you all have elected to do is to give it out to them in, not debit cards.
Yeah.
Gift cards.
Gift card.
There we go, that's the word I'm looking for, a gift card. Because my point there is, without their diligence, we wouldn't get that safety reward. So why not give it back to those people who adhere to policies and procedures and make it a safe place?
Well, by going safety, we got performance out of the whole
Yeah, I'd
thing.
rather
And
focus
everybody,
something else.
everybody across the board got a bonus.
rather
And
call it
that's how
something
we do
different.
it. But
If we can.
that's, we kicked that.
Everybody shouldn't get it.
That's
I mean,
correct. I agree, but
They're paid to do a job, and if they do the job,
well, we've been
they're
given.
already getting paid, so the bonus is over and above,
Right.
extraordinary, something over and above. We haven't treated it that way in the past.
Right.
I'm surprised auditors haven't jumped on that, but.
What's that,
Hmm?
Gary?
I said it's very difficult to quantify that though. And the problem that you run into is, you need to have assurances that whoever your supervisors or directors are being objective
Yes.
and not subjective and not showing favoritism.
Yeah.
And we kind of went through this discussion with individual council members because, we were thinking about changing our system to more of a performance-based. And really, none of them liked that because they were simply uncomfortable that staff would,
Properly rate.
would be very objective with
Yeah, you don't wanna make somebody
fair
mad
with
that's gotta work
everyone,
for you.
So they wanted to continue to leave it, they get their performance, everyone gets it now at the same time, every year. And if they meet satisfactory, then they get a 1.5%. And you can kind of Google that, and it's all over the board in terms of opinions on how to do performance appraisal for staff, and it's more difficult when you have smaller staff than when you have a large corporation.
Well, it's really more difficult when you don't have, them able to make a monetary contribution to the company. That's where I come from. You look at what they can contribute. Now we have to look at years of service and how they do their job, and they show up every day.
But do we have to call it a
They're
performance
being paid to do
bonus?
that.
I'll refer that to the attorney, but I believe in reviewing the state statute, it had to be performance-based
Based, right.
to be able to quantify for that bonus. It had to be available to everybody.
Showing up for work every day doing your job, why would that entitle you to a bonus? You're being paid to do that anyhow.
Right.
The bonus comes extraordinary.
Yeah, for the guy, I mean, our guys come in at midnight, our guys come at 2 AM, our guys come in at whenever we call them.
But
And
the
that's where,
point being here is we're trying to find another way to reward all employees.
You do it that way, that's what that extra dollar does.
Right. But I have heartburn with this being called performance bonus.
we can call it anything you want to, but at the end of the day,
I just want to make sure we're legally okay.
Where we meet the legal requirements, because they give us for this performance. They give us the criteria that we have to gauge them on.
Follow that criteria.
And I will tell you that the criteria
Government.
that.
State.
The state statute. The criteria that they specify is about 15% of what we do for our merit-based performance review. 9-day difference. So I'm just saying, for the merit-based, it's much more in-depth. It gets into lots of things, like your uniform, are you coming to work with,
Yeah.
clean, presentable uniform? How do you do your work? Do you complete it on time, or is there a repeat? Does a foreman have to come? So it's much more detailed.
But is everyone gonna get the same across the board?
Are you asking me for this, the one we're giving out in December?
Yes.
Yes. If they don't, there's a clear-cut reason why they don't, and maybe they need to go
Okay.
elsewhere.
But you just said yes, and now you're saying if they don't. So is it everyone's getting it, or
This
they're,
is the first year that we've had to do this.
They either get it or they
Before
don't.
that's my
Tabitha,
point.
but before Tabitha, we're trying to get money to our people.
Yes.
And,
I know.
and
Legally.
we can legally, we can label it anything we want to. It started out as $1,000 per person bonus every Christmas. We give it out at Christmas to help everybody get over the hump.
Yeah,
So,
I hear you.
but,
My thing is everyone's performance is different though.
but we
So-
can hang any name you want on it, but the bottom line is, we're trying to give them $1,000 bonus for Christmas.
I will say this, the easy way to do that is to give us a number during the budget process for a merit pay. Because that's where you try to discern between, is this person
Yes.
a 50 cent an hour person raise, or is this person a $2 an hour?
Right.
That's what the merit bonus is set up for,
Stay completely away from bonus, go to
Yes.
merit pay.
the merit performance, as opposed to the bonus issue, that it's not guaranteed next year, it's not
Correct.
guaranteed. It
I
is
tell you
for
what,
this year
you
right
two trot down there and sell it. To the people,
Oh.
to the employees. Sell it to them.
I have no problem giving them money. It's the way that it's titled, and we're given a
But-
merit based on performance, but yet
But
we're
we're-
kind of given
we're-
another one based on performance.
We put a name
It's a
on,
bonus.
it's a bonus.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
yeah.
what it
And
is.
it's not guaranteed, and it's not gonna
It's
be
not
forever.
guaranteed, and it's something that we do.
I know.
But you guys, again, we are sitting here
I'm hung up
with,
on performance.
we're
That's my
sitting here
problem.
with 4 or 5 people that can walk away from this company, and we are up the creek without a paddle. And we're arguing over $50,000,
Nobody's arguing over $50,000.
but that's what it is.
No, we want to give it, but again, my point is, it says that it's a performance bonus, and then the fact is we're giving everybody the same amount of money.
Once you tie it to the word performance, now you have to start evaluating. If it's not,
Right.
that word's not there, you don't have to evaluate, you give them all the money.
That's my point.
Okay, if it helps any, look at the 2 different words, not the performance or bonus. Look at merit versus the bonus. And there's 2 different sets of criteria and 2 different sets of outcome. Right? Is that the easy way to look at it?
Again,
I agree.
it's all about these guys getting a bump at Christmas, is all it's about.
Have salary schedules with steps.
No, not with steps. That was something that used to be in it a lot of years ago. What we kept is the minimum and maximum, and then when we did the merit type raises, it depended upon how they scored to the people in their department, so that somebody could get a 1%, or somebody might get 1.4%, so there would be this gradation.
You did it in the raise.
Yes.
Did it in the base pay.
Then,
It
That's-
wasn't a one-time shot, it was their salary.
That's the way, of course, it won't fly now. We've been doing this so long about this Christmas deal. It's treated as a Christmas present. And that, I mean, Tabitha and I are on the same page on this.
yes.
It should not be that way. It should be in the salary. I felt this way for a long time, but
Well, then, if you have the heartburn over the, I'll call it lump sum payment.
it's a gift. It's treated as a gift.
It is a gift, but it's a gift to people that earned it. I mean, there's no, they get it,
They need the money.
they need the money.
Yeah, we're not arguing that, Tommy.
I understand that, but we're chasing it down a hall. We had to put a legal name on it, and now we're gonna kick it to death because we put a legal name on it.
It is what it is, we just don't like what it is.
Exactly.
And I think
I'm not
that's,
against
is,
getting it, it's just, I have heard that it's performance-based, but anyway, whatever.
we don't want to discriminate against anybody, they need to get it across the board.
Yes.
It was called a Christmas bonus to begin with.
My company had a 1.5% Christmas bonus every year, and it was simple.
Well, not a Christmas bonus. If you're going to give a bonus, it has to be based upon something that's, you've identified that something, what it is.
You're correct.
And everybody has access to it.
But if we called it something other than like a safety bonus,
Change the name. I don't care what y'all change it to, as long as the people get it.
Yeah.
But it's,
You know?
I don't know that that would run without having a performance tied to it.
It's still, you're still tying perform, you're right.
The statute did not.
Oogie woogie bonus or something.
The statute did not say that Christmas is the wrong name and you have to do it, or safety. It's just a bonus program that you have to set up. And what it stopped, what it was directed at is, and these are for public agencies, not private, that this guy or girl over here got a 12% bonus, but this person over here only got 7, and this person only got 2, and there was nothing to base it upon. So they had to set up some kind of criteria, establish what the criteria is, make it well known to everybody, and we'll call it good. So it's similar to our merit-based program, but the merit-based program has a whole lot more categories to review somebody on.
Yeah, on our merit, the last time we did merit, we had them, everybody was pretty tight as far as their scores, if I remember right. There wasn't really too many people that was,
It depended upon the department supervisor. If, because we have at least some supervisors, let's say the score is 1 to 5. 3 is average, right? Show up for your paycheck, you do your job, maybe you're a 3. If you need some criteria, you might be a 2 or a 1. They scored everybody a 5.
yes.
Well, when you do that, it defeats the purpose of a merit-based deal because everybody
work with these
gets
guys.
the same amount. So I'm just saying, we try to school up the supervisors on how, start at 3 and then slide left or right each item on that specific person. And you will start to get ever so slight separation in all your employees. The better people get a higher merit, other ones might not. So, anyway, that's another.
John, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm trying to absorb all of this, I think we've decided $1 is where we're headed. And my question would be, since we have just approved the '23 budget, we didn't allocate this in the '22 budget, what do we have to do budget-wise to make this happen? Where they can get an extra buck?
Nothing. What we will
I
do.
like that answer.
What we will do as staff,
figured they would find it in the.
what we will have to do as staff is at some point in time during the year, we will have to give you a budget amendment showing this new expense. And we will just have to go into the budget and find it. We can do that. I'm okay with that. Just like if we considered any of these other things, if you wanted to raise the health care from $750 to $755 or whatever, $850, whatever. We will find it. I didn't propose anything here of those 3 that we couldn't find the money, but that $635, it just got smaller.
Yeah, it goes from 635 down by 154, but that's all in.
I'm just saying, it just goes down some, but we can find it.
And next year, we've got to look at how,
But don't we have to line item that in the budget, though?
What it would require is us to shift pools of money around But what we do have to do is why we have to do a budget amendment. It does bump our budget up by 155. So we still have to show that it went from, let's keep the math simple, 8 million to 8.155 million.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. We can do
For a
that.
dollar? No.
Okay.
And if you do that,
And if you wanted to do any of the other ones, if you wanted to make this 1.5% something or other that's happening next month to 3.0% something or other, we could do that. And if you wanted to increase the 750 to something different, we do that, and it would all be rolled into the budget. It gets money from different sources to different people.
And you're looking at, what's our average hours worked a week, John? I know we got some guys that bump it up a little bit because they're on call and stuff, but what are we, 42, 44 hours probably average?
Well, no, there's 40's a good number.
Is it?
It's a good number,
So-
but there's gonna be, depending upon the workload,
Yeah, just put it this way. 4 Italian sandwiches will cost you, 2 of them will cost you $64.
so.
Seriously.
But Tommy, to answer your question, whether it's, some overtime, all that's factored into the budget.
Right, but again, you're gonna take a guy that's been, by doing the $2, you're taking a guy that's, a 24-year guy's taking him to 29.50. You're taking a guy that's been here 21 to 26. You're taking a guy that's been here 26 years total to $26. It's, when you look at what it does for you, I
We
mean,
agree, we just have to figure out a way to get a plan in place.
well, we've got to be smart, and we know we've got our package is expensive, but we've got to figure out how to get these guys in here and keep them.
So, what I would suggest is you got a short-term plan, something minimal you can do right here, right now. And then the long-term plan, go back and look at that, which if that means bring in an outside agency that looks at local impacts versus industry-wide, however we get them to do it, that could be a long-term plan. But right here, right now, there's at least 3 options where it impacts, like the whatever we call the year-end deal, everybody gets that across the board. The $1 an hour, everybody gets that. So you get the majority, 52 employees. The healthcare expenses only impacts a select group. 36 for the first 50, I think it's 21, if I remember correctly, for the next 50, and out of the 36, 19 for the last 50. For this year. Next year, when open enrollment comes around, there may be a lot more people saying, well, now I've got $900 to spend, I'm going to get dental care for my family. But it's not gonna be out of pocket.
Well, at the end of the day, we're going from 1444 to 1644 to start here.
No, sir?
15.
44.
that's retro, right?
Oh, the 1444s with the dollar in it?
Yes, sir. So you're gonna go up to 1544, but keep in mind, Tommy, it's what I said, nobody here makes 1444.
I understand that, but when you advertise,
The range,
yes.
the starting, yeah.
Yeah, but if it is somebody like that that has that range, we also understand and let them know that I haven't looked here, but I'm pretty sure that is for some trainee position. So if you make it through the probation, you prove you can do this or that, whether it's a clerk or a maintenance, whatever. There's usually a bump in salary associated with that.
When you say that, give me an example of that, please.
What do you mean?
When you
A bump in
say-
salary.
Yeah, bump in salary.
Okay, so let's look at, let me find my sheet here. And let me take off my glasses so I can read it. So when you look at the distribution operator, trainee position, its starting salary is $15.05.
Okay,
When they make it through the probationary period, they usually bump up to the non-certified, so they go up to $15.70. They can't go any higher than that until they take an FDEP test to be a distribution operator 3, which then bumps them up to 1783. That process is, what would you say, Jamie, at least a year maybe?
And what are they handling?
Water or wastewater, either one.
And with that being said, some of the other utilities that we've even used as comparisons, do they have those departments broken up so that we have one person assigned to wastewater, one person assigned to the drinking water?
The bigger the utility, the
Yes.
more divisions they have.
Okay.
So you'll have like a water division, you'll have a wastewater, you'll have a pump station. The bigger utilities,
Right.
they do sub out their people.
So our people are cross-trained to be able to handle both.
Our people can do both. I can tell you down at the maintenance barn, they used to divide them up into a water section and a wastewater section.
Okay, but now they handle both.
No, right now, they used to, I can go down and find out. They had guys that were set up on the water side and guys that are set up on the wastewater side.
So those that are cross-trained, to me, are more marketable, thus they're worth more. So are we rewarding them accordingly?
All of them get rewarded with whatever licenses they acquire from DEP, because I don't think there is a wastewater license, is that correct?
Not a state certified.
But we get it through FPCOA, we go through another agency and they can get a certification. The question is, out of our guys, how many licenses can they hold to see that rate of pay go up?
Okay,
And so it's like water plant operators. You need a minimum of a C license. Do you want to pay for everybody to get an A license when you can get by with the C license? You know, it's a business decision that you want to make. Same would be true in the maintenance section. If you have 3, 2, and 1, different classifications, do you need everybody to be a 1? Because with each classification change, there's different skill sets that are needed moving away from actual hands-on experience, like at the water plant. To be an A license operator, you have to take management classes to show that you not only just operate a treatment plant, but you can operate budgets, you can operate how you bring people. You know, it's more of a managerial skill. You're moving away from actually turning buttons and operating the plant.
but with that being said, we should have a career pathing opportunity for these employees. Why would we want to just hold someone to the bare minimum of a particular license? Why wouldn't we allow them or encourage them to get more license and reward them accordingly, thus creating retention for those employees and moving them along?
So again, it gets back to, say, like on the water plant, do you need everybody to be an A licensor? You don't. You need some Cs, you need Bs, and you may need an A.
But
So
That's one way of looking at it, but if you look at how the fire departments and everybody else does, I mean, I don't know how many scuba divers we've got certified over here, because it increases their pay.
yeah,
I don't know how many people we got, I mean,
but it gives the employees something to work to.
right, it gives them, and in my shop, would I rather have all Class As versus, 1 Class A and 3 Cs? I'd rather have all Class As. They're a little more prima donna, but
I'm just trying to, it gives our employees.
I
more
just
to work
I have a question, and it's just for me. If you have 3 Class As, and only one's performing in that function, you're gonna have to pay the other 2, the A class, to do something under that, correct?
yeah, sure.
So that could be a problem. Now, incentive, I think incentive to everybody. Everybody needs an incentive to do the best they can. But that could give operations a nightmare when they're paying top dollar to somebody that's out there operating.
You're training them to go somewhere else.
That's it.
Exactly.
You're just turning people to.
so
Why would you
how do
wanna
you
be
fix
an
that? How do you, I mean, I know how we do it in the real world, but here,
Yeah, how do you work that?
Why would it be different than the real world? Why
the
wouldn't
real world, we go
provide-
all for the best.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't we provide those opportunities?
But again, when you look at, and I'm not sure about law enforcement, Gary, correct me, but I think the more
Money in, money out.
certs they get, I know it is with the fire department, those jokers, they get all kind of certifications to increase their pay. But law enforcement, not so much, but I know they do in the fire.
Many, state and local organizations, county organizations, yeah, you know, you only need one Class A to fill that position. When you got three there, I mean, that's great, but you can really only pay that one, because that's all you need for that position. That's, we all run into
It's totally different in the real world.
Yeah, that's different.
well, I mean, that's the real word too, is state organizations and local governments and.
We push all our guys 100%.
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because then it gives the employee feels like there's opportunities to continue growing. I want to stay here because I can continue growing. Otherwise, I'm going somewhere else.
So they do have that in their classification between the minimum and maximum. So the longer they stay, if everybody was, let's say, a Class B, and they were topped out at their maximum, now we got a problem, because they can't raise their pay. We've had that in a few instances. That is an issue, when that Class B or C or A, whatever it is, tops out at their maximum for their classification, that becomes an issue. Because now it,
Or what do you do?
That's his job,
I
not,
know,
not
I
board's
know.
job.
That's- what do you do? Or what
Well-
have you done?
you know, I'm pausing here, I'm trying to remember.
So it's been that long since we've had that issue?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, shame on us.
No, it's not shame on us, because if somebody options to go somewhere else to work, then they didn't make the maximum. So what I'm saying is, for an individual, there are two ways. You have a minimum and maximum, so as you progress in that classification, you will get every year. And it takes a lot of years. Or you get a grade change, and you move from, say, C to B.
Right.
So, and the way B is, it's more money. So let's say you were at the third step, as Tom called it, or fourth step or fifth step in Class C, and you moved up to B, you might be at the second step
Right.
for that
In that
Class B.
class, right.
So now you have more, it's not dollar-wise, you didn't go down on dollar-wise, it's just the way the pay scales are set up, you go down. So what I'm saying is, you have two ways of doing it, either by graduation, you get a different classification that we can use and benefit from, or between the min and max, you move up in your pay scale. The only problem is when you top out at some classification. That is gonna be required to look at.
And that's hard for me and you.
Well, if you move everybody up to A, at some point in time, they could be topped out at A. I mean, it happens at every classification, minimum and maximum.
But they should still be entitled to a raise.
Yeah, they're still gonna
But they're
get, I mean,
But
they
what
get their
you
colas,
said they're
you know?
not. Correct, because they're maxed out. So
Yeah,
the
but
only
it-
additional, would they be bonuses or?
Or COLA.
COLA.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
or whatever I had to do last time that happened, and I don't remember what I did. I don't.
These pay,
What we done, that whoever was topped out, didn't get no raise because you were topped out.
Yeah.
Well, didn't we go through this a few years ago?
Several years ago, that's where you went in and
This-
raised.
How long ago was that?
It hasn't been that long.
It hasn't been that long?
I don't think it's been that long, has
I'm
it?
just asking, because I don't
this,
remember it.
I mean,
all this we're talking is not board's stuff, that's his stuff, and he requests the money from us to pay for his, so,
So what are you saying, John?
what I'm saying is, he can't remember what he did, but he did it.
I know.
Because there was a big blowback on that, remember?
From who?
From the employees.
It is, when you're in that area, there is a fine line and thin ice all over the place.
Right.
But as John said, the hiring and firing of everybody is what y'all pay me to do, and it's my task. Now, if I don't
And
perform,
so is retention.
So you gotta give him the bait. You gotta give him the
you
bait.
guys got an issue with me, not with the retention. So, again, it comes comes with this territory, okay?
Well, and
I
John,
get
that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to, and I don't mean to be blunt, but you're locked into this. This is your world. You can't see outside this box you're looking in right here.
That's not true.
Well, it's the way you're talking.
That's not true.
It is the way you're talking. So, what we're trying to do is figure out, how do we keep these people? How do we get more people in here? How do we make this continue this as a successful business? It's been very successful,
27 years.
so how do we keep that? Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we're 5 people away from being in a bad place.
We are in a different environment now.
Yeah, and the whole work environment's different. The whole people you get is, you gotta, anyway, but,
And a part of that, to answer your question, is if this outside firm comes in, okay, they may look at this model that we have used for a lot of years and say it does need tweaking, or it needs to be scrapped, and we come up with something different. But it is what we have to work with today. Now, the idea that we have done as the board has considered over the last few years, yes, across the board, salary changes, hourly wages, whether you look at implementing any of these other choices about year in, whatever we're gonna call it, to healthcare increases, it all will immediately help, in some instances, all employees, in some other instances, only a select group for this year, who knows for next year. There are some choices out there.
And did you find out from ADP whether we were able to do this without any issues on the
The
insurance?
question has been posed to PRM,
Okay.
and the answer we got so far was no, it doesn't matter as far as whether the healthcare, because that's something that we do, not that falls under the open enrollment deal. It's not one of those issues that is cause for opening the enrollment like we talked about, whether it's employment or marriage or a baby or, whatever.
Yeah.
A qualified life-changing event.
Okay.
So, we're open to suggestions, giving you 3. Board action tomorrow, come up with whatever, if it's something different than these 3, or all of them. But there are a couple options that are proposed, and it does mean positive salary adjustments, any one of these 3, to a group of individuals.
I'm tired of talking about it.
I want to go back and start at the beginning again, John, and I'm being facetious, of course. Okay, well, we have some options, and you've given us the end result, way we can pay for it, and it can be budgeted, and,
I'm happy for anything else. I mean,
No, I'm sorry, John.
bottom line, the guys need a raise. They need more money to retain them and have a happier workforce, let's say.
Right, and this is step 1 in multiple steps of how do we get to that point
Yes.
to where we have multiple long-term employees.
My 15-year experience in HR, a buck here and there does not retain people. If they're not happy, they're not staying anyway.
Exactly right.
So keeping them happy is just as important.
without that, Buck, you're guaranteed to get upset.
You're guaranteed,
Absolutely, but
because everybody's looking. I mean, what's the average they're saying now? The average household's losing $500 a month compared to this time 2 years ago? Isn't that what it is? So, that's a lot of money.
No, it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're at the gas pump or the grocery store, you can see it, everybody sees it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. $5.30 a gallon diesel fuel. Okay, next.
item number 7,
So,
local purchase option. See you, Gary. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Gary.
We
Thanks.
don't normally last this long, so next time, we'll get you a cushion next time.
We encourage you to participate.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, they invited
But
him.
John, you've only got to read 2 things on this and we're done.
Actually, I don't read anything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let my partner here talk. He's been so patient and not saying anything.
I mean, it's pretty
I thought
simple
I heard him
here.
snoring one time.
For this next one, it's local purchase options.
Oh,
Yes.
he had a very good point.
What's that?
On this extra dollar,
So,
should be retro. Any of these,
that's tomorrow meeting's board,
our meeting, but
whatever you want.
you're gonna, if you do this, you ought to make it retro to the,
That's why I said several times, if you give them another dollar, it won't actually be 155 if you implement it now, because we're in
whatever,
November.
whatever,
If
it
you
ought to be
wanna roll it
retro.
back to 1 October, then it truly will be 155, but that's fine, either way, we can deal with it.
Really ought to be.
Retro sounds good.
Remember that for tomorrow.
Yes.
The banker will remember it.
I'll hook.
Press rewind, it's on tape.
The
Oh,
banker
no, we
will.
forgot to take this one.
No, she's taking. That's why we love Michelle.
Yeah, we do. All
So,
right, local purchase option.
Local purchase option. And again, I would have to revert back to certainly Lauriston's work that he did on the review, Tom's review of the Attorney General's position, but essentially it comes down to, when you read the Attorney General's position, supplementing or superseding state law is possible for those governmental agencies that have home rule effect, which are counties and cities. The independent special districts do not have home rule authority. So therefore, when you read the Attorney General's position that we gave to you, I can tell you that it's 6 pages. I tried to read through all 6 pages, but I got clearly lost in a bunch of the case studies, and so I didn't go back and look at it. I looked at what the Swanee River Water Management District question was versus the Attorney General's last paragraph, which was the opinion. And it basically said on that state statute that was talking about, where they were referencing the CCNA deal, where we're talking about purchasing power for construction-related engineering consultant, that we, because we don't have home rule, can't supersede that state statute. There were at least one statement in there that said you can if you can find it in the state statute, but that means you got to go read X number of state statutes to find that. So I don't know, based upon that, where we could go with the purchase of goods and services that exceed those that are required in here. Now, I don't know, Tom, do you have a different opinion on local purchase, or Lauriston, do you?
No. If a water management couldn't do it, you know we can't. I mean, short. But the question that was posed to the Attorney General was whether the district is authorized to adopt a policy of local preference in the procurement of goods and services. So we're pretty broad, goods and services. And this last paragraph, I don't know why they didn't just answer it with the last paragraph of that opinion. The short answer is no.
That's what I got out of it.
Short answer is no.
But he's fixing to say, but.
Well, one of the exceptions that we did find in there is for lumber. Now, how much lumber do we buy? And, so that, I just couldn't see where if I wanted to go down and buy an item at a local store for $15,000, where I could just willy-nilly say, let's go buy it.
Well, where did it come from? Where was it cut from? But anyhow, in that last paragraph, they talked about it had no authority to enact a policy granting a local preference to businesses located within the boundaries of the district. I mean, without statutory authority, we can't do it.
But it's clear. Now we know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Now, the county can do it. The city can enact policy.
yes.
We can't.
But see, that's where we were hearing it from.
That's correct.
That's who was
That's
pushing that
exactly-
horse.
That's exactly right.
So, as a side note, after our conversation, I sent an email to the county administrator, county attorney, administrator, and I said, here's this attorney general position. How can we implement, you know, based upon y'all's guidance, you get to do it, we don't. I just want to see if they kick it back to me for that same deal, that
That'd be
we
interesting.
have home rule.
Remember, they don't agree with a lot of
Yeah,
things
that's true.
that the law says, so.
So I'm just sharing that with you, that's what we kind of uncovered.
Well, it's good
It's
to
still a
know.
work in progress, but, I mean, I'm taking your flag and waving it here, Lauriston, but we really didn't see anything that said,
So now we can share with others.
Yeah.
Unless they can find a statute.
Well, Larston, don't you have enough time on your hands to start looking?
Oh, sure,
You've done
I'll start on Saturday.
so that's kind of where we're at. We'll try to do a recap for the board package tomorrow. May not get it all, but I'm sure y'all took lots of memories
We
and
took
notes.
notes.
And hopefully there can be some board action taken on some of this. And some of it will have to wait, but we will have some clear.
I think the big thing though is, like you said, the November, I know it is November, but waiting for that to see what we get back on monetary, and that gives you guys time to build this pro forma of when we start making payments and all that. So, you got 15 hours.
I was just
Yes, Tommy was on it.
We've got two projects on the board that are optional at this time, and that will impact, definitely impact, so,
Yeah, and it's,
and one of them's very important, because we got a lot of residents that get their feet wet when it rains, so we
Correct.
really have to try to help these people out. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Related to one.
you should,
No, I shouldn't be. They'd be coming to my house.
No, they go to him.
they go to me.
I redirect.
All right, well,
She went, I don't know what you're talking about.
to
This
be
is
you.
somebody's number right here. Call him.
And I called
One of those little blue houses and put it out in their front
By the
yard.
way, did I tell you I changed my number?
All right, well, I appreciate everybody hanging in here. I think it was very informative.
Good job.
We will see everybody tomorrow bright and early at 6:45,
Right?
and we'll get done quick. Oh, you don't work anymore, do you? I mean, oh, yeah, you got a job in town, so you don't have to travel. Anyway, thank you all, and meeting's adjourned.
Yeah, I don't, again.
That's right,
guys,
you're
I'm
working local now.
local.